My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé called off our wedding, all to threaten me and force me to give my college spot to that scheming, fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart, without the slightest hesitation. That very day, the underground empire of Martyr City erupted. Countless people began spreading the same message. Their little prince had returned. In my previous life, I was the undisputed favorite, the treasured little prince of the Shadow Organization. To escape more than 10 overprotective older sisters, I chose to return to my biological parents. But my parents were hopelessly biased, and my 5 biological sisters despised me. Even after I died, they went on television together to smear my name. When news of my death reached them, the 10 sisters from the organization gave me the grandest funeral imaginable. Then, on the night of my burial, they razed the Lin family estate to the ground. After getting another chance at life, I prepared a generous gift for the Lin family's fake heir, then faked my death and disappeared. The next day, news that the chairman of Sterling Pharmaceuticals had returned to the country caused a sensation. At the welcome banquet, my former fiancée, Claire Moore, and the fake heir, Logan Lin, squeezed through the crowd to make connections. But the moment they saw my face, they froze. Once Logan recovered from the shock, he stormed toward me and shouted, "How could you fake your death just to deceive Mom and Dad? You did it on purpose. And now you've even snuck into Sterling Pharmaceuticals' business banquet. Do you have any idea what kind of event this is? What makes you think you belong here? Come home right now and apologize to Mom and Dad." The next second, a sharp slap cracked through the room. "Who the hell do you think you are? Everyone here is far above someone like you. This is Sterling Pharmaceuticals' most honored young heir. Do you seriously think a family like the Lins has any right to associate with him?" Mrs. Moore was practically shaking with rage. She had never liked Logan to begin with. He was slick, shameless, and completely lacked the manners of high society. She had tolerated him before only because of her daughter. But she had pulled countless strings to secure an invitation to tonight's banquet. It had taken every connection she had, and now this idiot had nearly ruined everything. Gritting her teeth, she snapped, "Why are you still standing there? Apologize to him and Miss Shaw right now." Logan trembled as if he'd been thrown into an ice cellar. Everyone here was someone important. Getting slapped in public would make him the laughingstock of high society before the day was over. How was he supposed to show his face again? Logan's lips trembled. I was just... Slap! Another blow landed across his face. Logan nearly burst into tears. Faced with the furious Mrs. Moore, he didn't dare fight back. He could only look desperately toward Claire for help. Claire looked heartbroken for him, but there was nothing she could do. Mom, don't call me Mom." Mrs. Moore was furious beyond belief. Her daughter had always been such a disappointment, offending powerful people for the sake of one man, especially Sterling Pharmaceuticals, and Ms. Shaw was practically asking for destruction. I narrowed my eyes, amused by the whole scene. So power really was the only thing that mattered. As for sincerity, apparently it meant nothing. "Sweetheart, feeling better now?" Victoria Shaw looked at me with undisguised affection, but her eyes were ice cold when she glanced at Logan. She looked like she wanted to throw him off the building herself and watch him crash to the ground. Even that probably wouldn't have satisfied her anger. In her eyes, anyone who dared disrespect me was simply asking to die. I frowned. "Why are you calling me sweetheart? That's seriously embarrassing." By now, the situation had spiraled completely out of control. More and more guests heard about the commotion, and word soon reached the Lin family. Madison Lin had always been fiercely protective of her younger brother. The moment she heard Logan had been hit, she flew into a rage and wanted to rush over to protect him immediately. But David Lin saw the crowd gathered ahead and suddenly grabbed Madison's arm. "Wait, Dad, Logan's already been slapped twice." Madison looked anxious. Her usual poised, elegant demeanor had vanished. "If we keep waiting, he's going to be humiliated even more. We're the Lin family. We can't be so weak that we can't even protect one of our own." She wanted to see for herself who had the nerve to bully her little brother. But David's expression was grave, and worry filled his eyes. The people over there include executives from Manhwa Pharmaceuticals and Andrew Lewis, the CEO of Zhancheng Real Estate. Those are people our family normally couldn't meet, even if we begged for an introduction. And the Moore family is worth hundreds of millions. Yet even Mrs. Moore looks terrified. That means this situation is far more serious than you think. Whoever is disciplining Logan isn't someone we can afford to offend. Madison lowered her voice, clearly unwilling to accept it. But we can't just abandon him. David sighed and followed her over. The moment they arrived, they heard Mrs. Moore berating Logan. Logan, the people you've offended are people your family couldn't afford to provoke in 8 lifetimes. Ms. Shaw, this boy has nothing to do with the Moore family. Claire, tell her. Mrs. Moore even called her daughter by her full name. Her tone had become painfully submissive. Claire kept her head lowered. All of her usual pride had been crushed. It had only been one careless remark. How had everything turned into this? Just then, David Lynn arrived. Mrs. Moore finally breathed a small sigh of relief. His own son was his responsibility. He could clean up this disaster himself. A disgraceful boy like Logan couldn't compare to her former son-in-law at all. At least Ryan had always been loyal and sincere. Nothing like this brat. But in the next instant, Mrs. Moore's heart jumped again. Ryan? David stared at me in complete shock. Madison frowned. Ryan, you faked your death? Everyone nearby sucked in a sharp breath. The Lynn family truly had no idea how lucky they were. They had walked straight into hell when they could have stayed away. Andrew Lewis laughed in disbelief. Open your damn eyes and look carefully. This is the most treasured young heir of Sterling Pharmaceuticals. Miss Shaw's younger brother. What kind of status do you think you have to claim any connection to him? Another executive sneered. Some people really will say anything to make themselves look important. I toyed casually with the priceless jade bracelet around my wrist, then asked slowly, where is this Ryan you're talking about? I'd love to see whether he actually looks like me. If he doesn't, a hint of danger flashed in Victoria's eyes. And you've been playing games with us. I don't think my sister is going to be very happy. Victoria gave a quiet scoff, her displeasure instantly obvious. David immediately realized this man couldn't possibly be Ryan. They simply looked alike. That was all? I'm sorry. I mistook you for someone else. Ryan is already dead. David knew his biological son fairly well. Ever since I had returned from the countryside, I had always been timid and submissive. I might have been hard-working, but I would never have carried myself with this kind of arrogant confidence. One of the executives laughed mockingly. You actually compared a dead man to someone of his status. You people are unbelievable. The moment those words were spoken, the entire room fell deathly silent. The men in black who had accompanied Victoria began moving closer without making a sound. They were like ghosts. David's heart sank. His expression changed instantly. I'm sorry. My son was confused. He didn't mean to offend any of you. He finally understood how serious the situation had become. Faced with overwhelming power, the Lynn family had no choice but to bow their heads. We're sorry. I wasn't trying to make fun of you. Logan hurriedly apologized. But lowering himself in front of a face identical to mine was incredibly difficult for him. In the past, whenever he had looked at this face, he had always been the one standing above me, bullying me. Yet now someone who looked almost exactly like me had appeared, with a status so far beyond his reach. I can show you a picture. Please, just let this go. Don't hold it against me. I'm only 18. I just became an adult. Logan desperately tried to excuse himself. The slaps from Mrs. Moore had already frightened him badly. Victoria tilted her head slightly. It was a signal. One of the men in black stepped forward and pinned Logan down. Ah, it hurts. Logan's arm was twisted behind his back, and a sharp crack came from his bones. He lowered his head in agony. His knees buckled, and he nearly collapsed from the pain. The next second, a pair of leather shoes stopped directly in front of him. Then, a large, powerful hand gripped his chin. Logan was forced to lift his head and look straight at me. And what he saw in my eyes was nothing but contempt and coldness. Sorry? I let out a quiet scoff. Who do you think you are, jumping around in front of me like this? Has no one ever taught you how the real world works? My gaze remained perfectly clear and calm. My amber eyes were bright and crystal clear. Cold sweat beaded across Logan's forehead as his heart pounded wildly. The pain left him tense and terrified. I didn't mean it. I turned toward Victoria and tapped the prayer beads around her wrist. No killing, okay? A moment later, Logan was dragged away. Madison tried to stop them, but Victoria grabbed her by the collar and slammed her hard against the banquet table. The sudden movement knocked over an entire tower of champagne glasses. "Let go of me." Madison gasped for breath, with her cheek pressed against the table. Champagne streamed across the surface toward her face. Her cheek was soaked, and her pristine white outfit was ruined, along with what remained of her dignity. Victoria held her down, as effortlessly as pinning down a helpless child. "I suggest you mind your own business. Around here, I make the rules. If I wanted to. I double. Your entire family could leave this place on stretchers." Victoria's voice was low and chillingly cold. Everyone nearby who heard her couldn't help shuddering. Trying to reason with someone like Miss Shaw, who lived with danger every day, was unbelievably naive. David wanted to intervene, but there was no way he could even get close. The slightest movement would have gotten him restrained immediately. I calmly lifted my glass and took another sip, then frowned at the mess on the floor. I was almost unnaturally indifferent, as if the entire farce had done nothing but ruin my mood. I set my glass down on the table, then turned and walked away. Victoria released her grip and immediately followed me. "Sweetheart, I'm sorry your clothes got dirty. How about I replace them for you? I'll have a designer come tomorrow and custom make some new ones. You can have as many as you want." I curled my lips into a smile. No. David hurried over to help Madison up. His heart ached at the sight of her looking so miserable. "Madison, are you all right? You are too reckless. Those two are far more dangerous than you realize. Provoking them will only drag us down with you." David took a clean handkerchief from one of the servers and hurriedly wiped the champagne from Madison's face. He let out a heavy sigh. "After tonight, our family may be in serious trouble." Madison stared deeply at our retreating backs, gritting her teeth until her chest hurt with anger. "Just because they have overwhelming power, they think they can look down on everyone else and grind people like us into the dirt?" David frowned, his voice growing stern. "Enough. We're leaving before something else happens." What happened tonight was Logan's own fault. He knew exactly what kind of place this was. We explained everything before we came. He's the one who didn't listen. Madison clenched her fists. Logan didn't know any better. He's still so young. "Oh, please." One of the executives leisurely swirled the wine in his glass. "That young Heir is barely an adult too, isn't he? Your little brother really is something else." Comparing him to a dead man right to his face. "Do you even understand the difference between his status and yours? You should teach your brother some manners when you get home, before he drags everyone around him down too." The executive's gaze turned icy. He was irritated as well. Jinhua Pharmaceuticals had finally gotten a chance to meet someone this powerful, and Logan had opened his mouth at the worst possible moment, ruining the entire atmosphere. Their trip tonight had basically been wasted. Some people truly had no idea how to appreciate an opportunity. How had the Lin family even gotten invited here? Andrew Lewis also shot Mrs. Moore an unhappy look. "Your Moore family needs to stop bringing every random nobody into events like this. Otherwise, don't bother attending future chamber gatherings." Andrew Lewis was the president of the business association. Offending him was practically digging their own grave. "President Lewis, you've misunderstood. It was all because of that useless brat." Mrs. Moore hurried after him to explain herself. Madison's shoulders slumped slightly. All of this had happened because of that mysterious man. Why did someone who looked almost exactly like Ryan have to be so terrifyingly powerful? Was this karma? Punishment for everything they had once done to me? Your brother was dragged away just now. You should go check on him. If something happens, it'll be too late. David suddenly came to his senses. Although Madison looked like a soaked bird caught in a storm, she quickly forced herself to regain her composure. Her pupils contracted. She didn't dare waste another second, and rushed outside like she had lost her mind. Inside a BMW, Logan sat trembling with his knees pulled to his chest. In the back seat, his entire body was covered in bruises, and one of his arms was already broken. By the time Madison found him, he looked completely traumatized. David sat behind the wheel, listening to Logan sob in the back seat until irritation overwhelmed him. "Stop crying," he snapped quietly, turning to look at Logan. "You brought everything that happened tonight on yourself. I've always said you were the most sensible one. Polite, generous, and capable of handling yourself in public. So what happened to you tonight? Claire brought you into a circle like that, and you actually thought you could just walk in and say whatever you wanted? It was the first time Logan had ever been scolded by his dad. He stared blankly at David and immediately stopped crying. People can look alike and still live completely different lives. Don't misunderstand your position. Someone like him is treasured by Miss Shaw like the most precious thing in the world. If this ever happens again, you won't get away with just a beating. After David finished speaking, he seemed to age several years at once. His head throbbed painfully. Madison wanted to defend Logan, but David cut her off before she could speak. Madison, you'll understand tomorrow. Nothing stays secret in business circles like this. Once people sense weakness, everyone piles on. David exhaled deeply. I'm afraid the Lin family's businesses are about to take a serious hit. Madison finally understood how serious the situation was. She also knew how desperately the Lin family wanted to return to the capital. If their family's entire business plan collapsed because of this, then Logan wouldn't be the only one responsible. Madison would share the blame as well. David's expression hardened. Don't tell anyone at home what happened tonight, especially not about Sterling Pharmaceuticals' young CEO, looking exactly like Ryan. Your mother and your second sister, along with your fifth sister, still haven't gotten over Ryan. If they find out and come here to confront him, we'll only repeat tonight's disaster. As David spoke, he suddenly found the whole situation almost absurd. Logan cradled his aching, broken arm. I understand, Dad. Back inside, the banquet hall remained brilliantly lit. Laughter and music blended together, as countless businessmen smiled and raised their glasses in conversation. I sat beside the window. With Victoria beside me, plenty of beautiful socialites were dying to approach, but none of them dared come within a few feet. This sister of mine was practically a walking demon. Men and women alike were afraid to get too close. She was genuinely terrifying. Victoria spoke lazily. So, after seeing the Lin family humiliated like that tonight, do you feel better? Better, I asked back, resting my chin on one hand. No, this is only the beginning. Compared with everything the Lin family did to me, this little punishment means nothing. My expression became distant. I had faked my death, deliberately arranging an accident to make them regret everything. The funniest part was, Grace Lin genuinely believed I'd died saving them out of kindness, and sacrificed myself for them. She had been sending messages every day, begging for forgiveness. My voice carried a trace of mockery. This is only the beginning. I want to watch them drown in regret and despair, just like I once did. I remembered what it felt like to be treated like a hated stray. That crushing despair, that resentment, that desperate need to ask why they had treated me that way. Soon, they would experience far more of it themselves. You've gotten pretty calculating, haven't you? Victoria reached over and ruffled my hair. You even faked your own death. You really know how to make people worry. But Victoria found the whole idea almost ridiculous. Using a fake death to make that family regret what they'd done? Some people had already lost every trace of humanity. How could people without a conscience suddenly grow one? If anything, she thought the fact that I had gotten hurt in the process made the whole thing completely not worth it. Crushing those insignificant ants outright would have been far easier. They deserved it anyway. By the way, stop calling me sweetheart in public. It's embarrassing. Then what should I call you? If I call you Ryan in public, someone might figure it out. But in private, I can still call you Ryan. But definitely not in public. Victoria paused. Isn't that exactly what you wanted? You don't want the Lin family or the Moores recognizing you either, right? That's true. But I hesitated, a little embarrassed. Just don't call me sweetheart. I'm not that little kid from the orphanage anymore. Tail ignored me. Her mouth belonged to her, and she'd call me whatever she wanted. In my heart, you'll always be that little kid from the orphanage, the 3-year-old mute who couldn't even talk and needed someone to protect him, or else he'd get bullied. I lowered my eyes. Victoria quickly changed the subject. I've already taken care of everything with your school. I lifted my chin slightly. I'm not stupid enough to hand my admission spot over to someone else. I won't make the same mistake twice. But I don't want to crush their hopes too soon. Doesn't Logan love stealing things from me? Then I'll let him wait until the first day of school. and see just how unnecessary a thief like him really is. Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to watch the next part. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. Calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Victoria quickly changed the subject. I already handled everything with your school. I lifted my chin slightly. I'm not an idiot. Why would I hand my admission spot over to someone else? The same mistake isn't going to happen twice. But I don't want to destroy their hopes too soon. Doesn't Logan love stealing things from me? Then I'll let him wait until the first day of school and see just how unnecessary a thief like him really is. More guests started approaching. Victoria stopped talking. Here come more people trying to flatter you. A handsome young CEO really does attract attention. Her voice made no attempt to hide how proud she was of me. I was her little brother after all. Of course, she thought I was the best in the world, but when she saw Claire approaching, her gaze instantly turned cold. Looks like someone really thinks she's lived long enough. Claire stared at me from across the crowd. Gilaz! Man, looked exactly like the fiancé she had just lost. Yet everything about the way he carried himself was completely different. Arrogant, domineering, and completely unconcerned with anyone else's opinion. Claire clenched her fists and slowly walked closer. It was almost an instinctive reaction. Her rational mind told her it was a mistake, but emotionally, she couldn't stop herself from looking at me a little longer. It felt like she was seeing Ryan again. Her regret and grief were almost unbearable. If only she could do it all over again. She would never have let Ryan suffer that kind of humiliation or carry all that pain. Until he died in despair. Victoria sat down, leaving space for Claire to approach me. I raised my eyes and looked directly at her. Claire swallowed. Hello. I lowered my gaze and smiled faintly. Claire desperately wanted to get to know me better. But a man like me was clearly protected by someone extremely powerful. Just being under Victoria's gaze made Claire's skin crawl. If she made one wrong move, she might be the next person dragged away. Since we'll both be in the same city, if the opportunity comes up, I hope we can work together sometime. You're so young, yet you've already achieved so much. It's genuinely impressive. I thought for a moment. Maybe. Claire hesitated. She looked at me again and was reminded even more strongly of Ryan. Only after losing him had she understood how much he mattered. As she stared at me, a thought kept echoing in her mind. If she had given Ryan a little more time back then, or treated him just a little better, would he have become this confident and radiant too? Could I add you on WeChat? I smiled faintly. Of course, since she was the second daughter of the Moore family. We would probably cross paths often in the future. Claire added me as a contact and saved my name as Little Lynn. My social feed was filled with photos from overseas. At a glance, anyone could tell I had lived the privileged life of a wealthy heir. Claire stared at the unfamiliar account and felt an inexplicable wave of disappointment. Though I really wasn't Ryan. She opened Ryan's old contact in her list. The last message was still there, urging him to agree to end their engagement. Ryan's social feed just contained only a handful of photos. The young man in them was still gentle and handsome, but he was gone forever. While Claire was lost in thought, Mrs. Moore came over to call her daughter and pulled her by the arm out of the crowd. Have you lost your mind? Mrs. Moore was extremely irritated. She had barely managed to smooth things over with the executives from Genhua Pharmaceuticals and President Lewis. And the moment she turned around, Claire had gone back over there, as if she were possessed. I know you can't let go of Ryan. But what kind of status did Ryan have? Compared with this man? Mrs. Moore sighed helplessly. And I really don't understand you. When Ryan was alive, you spent all your time around Logan. Now that Ryan is dead, suddenly you can't stop thinking about him. Claire looked at her mother. Mom, he looks so much like Ryan. When I look at him, it feels like Ryan is still alive. Mrs. Moore sighed. You'll get over it eventually. Sterling Pharmaceuticals' business banquet had already drawn enormous attention. And after the event ended, People everywhere started talking about the handsome young CEO, then, and his terrifyingly powerful older sister. Without question, I instantly became the newest rising figure among the upper class, and one of the hottest names in the city. After tonight, a city's power circles had gained another formidable player. When the guests returned home, they couldn't stop talking about Sterling Pharmaceuticals, and whenever the subject came up, they inevitably mocked the Lin family for practically digging their own grave, while praising Victoria's ruthless methods. The next morning, when the Lin family sat down for breakfast, Mrs. Lin saw Logan covered in bandages, and her brow immediately twitched. She looked at him worriedly. "Logan, what happened to you? Didn't you go to the business banquet last night? What time did you all come home? How did you end up like this? Were you in a car accident?" Logan opened his mouth to answer, but David spoke first. "Logan accidentally fell last night," Mrs. Lin gasped. "Oh my, how could you be so careless? You need to pay more attention to your safety from now on." Logan felt terribly wronged, but kept his head lowered without saying anything. Mrs. Lin was actually more interested in hearing about the banquet, but what memories could Logan possibly have of it? Other than getting beaten and humiliated, there was nothing worth remembering. He didn't want to think about it again at all. "Mom, stop asking." Seeing that Logan was upset, Mrs. Lin immediately softened. All right, Mom won't ask anymore." David looked at Logan, and the thought in his mind grew stronger. He used to think this eldest son could do no wrong. Everything about him had seemed perfect. But now, the more David looked at him, the more disappointing he seemed. Meanwhile, that other young man was apparently an orphan too, who had grown up with his sister. Yet he could laugh and talk naturally with powerful business leaders, calm, confident, and completely at ease. If only his own son could be like that. Now that would be a son who could truly support the family. David sighed, put down his chopsticks, and lost his appetite. Mrs. Lin thought his behavior was strange. "Why are you wearing such a long face first thing in the morning? Who upset you?" Logan was too ashamed to lift his head. Dad must still think he had embarrassed the family. Sophia Lin comforted him. "Logan, don't look so miserable. You only had a fall. It was just a little accident." "Come on," she smiled. "School starts the day after tomorrow, doesn't it? I've got some good news for you. I've already transferred to your university." Logan's eyes immediately lit up. "Then I'll get to be at the same school as you?" "Yes." Mrs. Lin shook her head helplessly. "Look how excited you are. Your sister has a doctorate, and she's also a graduate advisor. She's very busy. You're only a freshman, so don't follow her around campus all day. You'll end up affecting her reputation." "I won't." Logan's mood instantly improved. "Everyone at school is going to be so jealous of me for having such an amazing and beautiful sister." Sophia Lin shook her head. "I'll drive you out later to buy some clothes." "Thanks, Sophia." Logan nodded eagerly. Grace Lin had completely lost her appetite. It felt like something was stuck in her throat. How could they be this happy? Ryan had only been dead for a few days. Was there really anything worth celebrating? A sharp pain twisted through Grace's chest. She gave a bitter laugh. "Logan, that admission spot belonged to Ryan, and you're really this comfortable taking it?" Grace's gaze darkened as she stared at the dazzling smile on Logan's face. "His body is barely cold, and you're already looking forward to your college life? Was all that kindness you showed before even real? I'm starting to think it wasn't." Mrs. Lin froze. "Grace, what are you talking about? Why would you say something so cruel just to hurt Logan? What's gotten into you?" Logan's expression immediately turned wounded. "I know you still can't accept Ryan's death, but eventually, you have to face reality. You can't be this selfish. Ryan's death had nothing to do with Logan. Are you really going to take away Logan's happiness too?" Grace took a deep breath. That wasn't it. She wasn't trying to stop Logan from being happy. It was just that he was nothing like the person she remembered anymore. Couldn't anyone else in the family see it? Grace stared deeply at Logan. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." Logan's heart skipped a beat. He bit his lip, with tears already trembling in his eyes. In the past, that look would have broken Grace's heart. But now, there was an extra trace of suspicion in her gaze. The kind-hearted Logan she remembered shouldn't have been this cold, this selfish and heartless. Back then, Grace had been so obsessed with protecting her little brother that she'd lost all sense of reason. with Logan always painting himself as the victim. She had naturally thought he was pitiful and wronged. But looking back now, had Ryan ever actually done anything to Logan? Everything had always come from Logan's side of the story. Grace, I'm sorry. Logan stood up. I know this is my fault. I was the one who insisted on going to the reservoir that day. If it weren't for me, Ryan never would have gotten hurt. I've been having nightmares every night. And apologizing to Ryan in my dreams. Sometimes I wish I'd been the one who died. Logan spoke with apparent sincerity. About what happened, please don't misunderstand me. No one feels more guilty about Ryan's death than I do. Sophia couldn't listen anymore. A trace of irritation appeared on her usually gentle face. That's enough, Grace. You may feel guilty about what happened to Ryan, but that doesn't give you the right to dump all the blame on Logan. Grace shook her head, then turned and strode away. She didn't want to hear any more. She admitted that she was guilty, but that didn't mean everyone else was innocent. She would never forgive herself, but she couldn't stand watching the others carry on with their lives as though nothing had happened. Grace left the house and headed straight downtown. She sat inside a coffee shop near the university entrance. It was already noon. She watched the endless stream of students passing outside, with her phone still in her hand. She had sent Ryan countless messages again last night, but he would probably never see any of her apologies. Hi, 1 black coffee, no sugar. A cool, clear voice suddenly sounded. Grace was sitting on a sofa beside the window. The moment she heard that voice, her entire body stiffened. She turned sharply toward the counter and saw a young man wearing a soft button-down shirt and light-colored casual pants, standing there paying. His back was straight and elegant, and a watch rested around his wrist. That watch was one Grace recognized. She had once considered buying it for Logan. It cost $100,000. The light in Grace's eyes dimmed. That man's voice sounded so much like Ryan's. But Ryan could never have afforded a watch that expensive. Then the man turned around, and Grace's breathing instantly quickened. She shot to her feet and rushed over in just a few steps. It was Ryan. She wanted desperately to run up to him and touch him just to see whether he was warm, whether he was breathing, whether he was truly alive, or whether this was only another hallucination. Ryan, stop. A bodyguard dressed in black immediately blocked Grace. His voice was ice cold. Who are you? Stay away from our young master. As my personal bodyguard. The moment he saw this disheveled woman, he immediately became wary. I raised an eyebrow and finally noticed the exhausted-looking Grace. Strange. What was she doing at the university? Then realization hit me. Had she come here with Logan? She really did care about him that much. I gave a faint, amused smile. Relax. She just mistook me for someone else. Young master, there are plenty of dangerous people outside. My boss already gave me strict orders. I'm to stay by your side at all times and protect you. Andrew didn't move aside and continued standing protectively in front of me. I sighed helplessly. Sorry. My family's bodyguards are a little intense. They don't really listen to me. Please, go ahead. With that, I walked toward a seat by the window and sat down. Grace turned and stared at me. Too similar. Exactly the same. Ryan. Grace followed me in a daze. I know I treated you badly before, and you don't want to forgive me. You don't even want to acknowledge me anymore. I'm sorry. Please, just give me one chance. I'll change. I swear I'll never hurt you again. Grace had always been proud and stubborn. But this time, she had lowered herself beyond recognition. Just seeing that you're still alive is already enough for me. Her voice trembled with desperation. As long as you can forgive me, I'll do anything you ask. I leaned back against the sofa and gave her an awkward look. Sorry. I casually brushed a hand through my short hair. I have no idea what you're talking about. If you're trying to use this as an excuse to get close to me, it's honestly a little strange. Grace's eyes turned red. Ryan, I really regret everything. I've spent every day these past few days thinking about what I did. I'm not even human. I'm worse than an animal. She clenched her fists, her emotions beginning to collapse. Please don't treat me like a stranger. Several people nearby started looking over curiously. What's wrong with her? No idea. Looks like she's begging him for forgiveness. She's actually pretty beautiful. She's really lowering herself, huh? Come on. Who still falls for the whole I've changed routine these days? Look at that guy. He's ice cold. That's how you do it. Anyone can beg for forgiveness with a few words. Whispers spread through the coffee shop. and hearing them only made me more irritated. Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to watch the next part. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number. I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, look at that guy. He's ice cold. That's how you do it. Anyone can beg for forgiveness with a few words. Whispers spread through the coffee shop, and hearing them only made me more irritated. A server brought over my drink. Sir, your coffee. I reached out to take it. Grace saw how completely I was ignoring her. Ryan, I'm begging you. You don't have to forgive me. But please don't be this cold. Just say something to me, okay? Miss. I took a small sip of coffee, and the bitter taste spread across my tongue. I frowned, finally losing my patience. I've already told you. You've got the wrong person. I don't know you, so what exactly do you expect me to say? No, you're refusing to recognize me on purpose. A devastated look appeared in Grace's eyes. I've done unforgivable things, so you're right not to acknowledge me. The Lin family owes you. You suffered far too much unfair treatment in our home. She lowered her head. Have you been living well since you left? You must be much happier than you ever were at home. My expression hardened. Andrew immediately grabbed Grace without any courtesy. If you keep harassing our young master, I won't be polite anymore. Get out. I raised my eyes, just in time to see Grace being dragged out of the coffee shop. But she refused to give up and kept trying to come back inside. With Andrew there, she couldn't get within a single step of me. In the end, she could only stand outside, crying through the floor-to-ceiling glass window. Her beautiful face was filled with deep regret. Judging from the shape of her lips, she kept repeating the same 3 words. I let out a mocking laugh. Belated affection was worth less than dirt. Young master, are we heading home? Andrew walked over and asked. The others are coming back from the capital tonight, so we should probably return early. I set down the coffee cup in my hand. I hadn't seen my brothers and sisters in a long time. I smiled bitterly, already feeling troubled. They probably had plenty of resentment toward me by now. Andrew didn't dare say anything. He had also come from the Shadow Organization, so naturally, he knew how terrifying those people could be. Anyone who had survived in a place like that for 10 or 20 years and risen to fame and power could hardly be considered normal. The bosses have always loved you the most, young master. They definitely won't hold anything against you. I wasn't so sure. Before I was adopted and sent to the countryside, I had always lived with my brothers and sisters. It was just that. None of them had particularly pleasant personalities. In fact, they could be downright terrifying. I sighed. Feeling more nervous than I wanted to admit, I stood up and headed outside, with Andrew following beside me. Only after I left did someone whisper, that guy must be a rich kid. He even brings a bodyguard to school. Obviously, rich people are always afraid something will happen to them. But it also means his family really cares about him. Some people are born at the finish line. I'm jealous. Bang. The car door closed, and I got into the luxury car. Grace tried to come over again, but Andrew blocked her. Take one more step, and I'll use force. Andrew frowned deeply. His tall frame made him extremely intimidating. Our young master has a very important status. Don't throw your life away. Grace stared at me through the car window. My profile was handsome and refined, and my entire presence carried effortless nobility. Ryan, I don't know what you've been through, but I'll make it up to you. I'll make up for every bit of pain we caused you. I took a business card from my pocket and held it out through the window. Andrew tossed the card to her before getting into the passenger seat, and the driver immediately pulled away. Ryan, Grace held the card, and watched helplessly as the card disappeared. She sank painfully onto the curb, still clutching the business card. Sterling Pharmaceuticals, CEO, Ethan Allen. Grace didn't believe it. She was certain that man was me. She wasn't blind. There was no way she could fail to recognize her own brother. She pulled out her phone and called Olivia Lynn with trembling hands. Her phone was turned off. Grace's face tightened with suppressed emotion. She slipped the business card into the pocket closest to her chest, terrified that she might lose it. Inside a temple, candles burned as incense smoke curled upward. Thin white smoke drifted slowly through the air, before disappearing into the dim hall. Olivia Lynn wore simple white cotton and linen clothing, as she knelt on a prayer cushion, surrounded by the sound of monks chanting sutras. Many of them were reciting prayers for the dead. A memorial tablet stood before them, bearing Ryan Lynn's name. When Olivia finished bowing and stood up, she looked at the statues of deities filling the hall. Tears filled her eyes. She prayed that the gods would treat Ryan kindly. Olivia had remained at the temple for 7 straight days, performing rites in hopes of guiding my soul peacefully to the other side. She had heard that people who died without an intact body, especially those who died with hatred, could struggle to reincarnate. Once the chanting ended, Olivia stood and walked out of the hall. Her knees had gone numb from kneeling. Outside, Mrs. Lynn stood beneath a tree. The moment she saw Olivia, she hurried over, frowning with worry. "What's wrong with you? You've been away from home for so long, ignoring calls, and not answering messages. I thought something had happened to you. Logan is starting school in a few days. You should be home spending time with your brother. Everyone is hurting. What good does it do to run away and hide by yourself?" Olivia frowned. "Enough. You treated Ryan far too unfairly. What we did was unforgivable. You should stay here and pray for Ryan too, to atone for it." Mrs. Lynn thought Olivia had completely lost her mind. Olivia had always been obsessed with racing, and never believed in taboos or superstition. Yet now, she had actually become religious. "Olivia, there has to be a limit to this. Ryan died, but that doesn't mean you have to lose your mind too. Stop talking." Olivia's voice was ice cold. "Last month I lost a race, and the other side wanted me dead. Ryan was the one who came to save me. And at the reservoir, he saved me for the second time." Olivia stood perfectly straight. "Forget 7 days of chanting. Even if I spent 3 years doing this, it still wouldn't be enough." Mrs. Lynn stared at Olivia in disbelief. "You're still so young, yet you're hiding away in a temple. You're beyond help. Fine, maybe staying here will help you calm down. Just stop drowning yourself in guilt. You treated Ryan well enough. He was simply unlucky in life." Mrs. Lynn also lit a stick of incense. Seeing how exhausted Olivia looked made her heart ache. "Even if you're staying here, you still need to take care of yourself." Olivia gave a quiet response, then took out her phone and turned it on. She saw that Grace had sent her countless messages. At first, she planned to ignore them. But then she looked closer and saw that every message said the same thing. "Come back. Ryan is still alive." Olivia's entire body jolted. She forgot everything else, grabbed her car keys, and rushed down the mountain. Only one thought filled her mind: Ryan is still alive. I had only gone to the university to handle some enrollment paperwork. By the time I returned to the villa, Toria still wasn't home. Ava carried a formal suit upstairs. "Young master, you're back. Perfect timing. Your new outfit has already been pressed. Come, try it on." Ava was a lively young woman, with a cheerful, pleasantly round face. I used to handle cleaning and organizing around the villa, but now things are much better. I'm assigned full-time to take care of you. Not having to serve Miss Shaw anymore is practically a blessing, Ava said with a grin. As she led me back to my bedroom, I looked at the formal suit. Is my sister really that hard to serve? Ava certainly didn't dare say too much, but every servant in the villa shared the same understanding. Miss Shaw was terrifying. They experienced it every single day. It was the perfect definition of constantly walking on eggshells, especially with the way she always wore such a dark expression. One glance from her could make your blood run cold. Not exactly. We're just afraid of making mistakes. I smiled faintly. Fair enough. Ava unfolded the outfit across the bed. It was a light blue suit, sharp and stylish, with an exceptionally refined design. Did my sister tell you to buy this? Ava shook her head. A designer saw your photos, then worked overtime to finish this custom-made suit and deliver it personally. You'll probably be meeting quite a few guests later. The boss said you should make do with this outfit tonight. They'll prepare even better ones afterward. Ava giggled quietly. Basically, Miss Shaw spoils you way too much. She wants you to have the absolute best of everything. I looked puzzled. Seriously? Sure enough, plenty of people soon arrived at the villa. Master fashion designers, master jewelers, representatives from countless luxury and haute couture brands. Even interior designers showed up. They surrounded me like attendants serving a prince, and spent the entire afternoon fussing over me. By the time I had dealt with everyone, I was exhausted and had a pounding headache. Even in my previous life, when I had already become extremely successful, I rarely experienced anything this extravagant after all. These were all top-tier designers with packed schedules. Yet they had cleared time specifically to come serve me. Even celebrities had to maintain good relationships with major couture brands. They couldn't simply summon these people whenever they wanted. After I finally finished meeting everyone, I noticed the servants downstairs, rushing around to decorate and prepare the villa. Ava also came over to remind me to change. Young master, hurry and wash up and get dressed. Boss Feng is already on the way. The moment Ava thought of Feng, her face lost some of its color, and even her hands began to tremble. I froze. Evelyn Shaw? The 12 Shura of the Shadow Organization were ranked by the order they joined. Victoria had joined first and ranked number 1, while Evelyn ranked second. Evelyn Shaw, the ghost-faced miracle doctor. I frowned slightly. I understand. Then I changed into the suit. I sat in front of the mirror and let the stylist work on me. My short black hair looked neat and sharp in the reflection. With only a little grooming, I already looked strikingly handsome. My gaze deepened. Evelyn was known as the ghost-faced miracle doctor, not because she looked frightening, quite the opposite. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with a trace of masculine sharpness, yet still possessing the soft beauty of a woman. Her figure was tall, slender, and almost too thin, giving her a faintly fragile, sickly appearance. But the chill buried deep in her bones gave her an unsettling darkness that naturally inspired fear. Knock, knock, knock. Someone tapped on the bedroom door. Dows. If you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner. And tap to watch the next part. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college admission spot to that scheming, fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, she still possessed the soft beauty of a woman. Her figure was tall, slender, and almost too thin, giving her a faintly fragile, sickly appearance. The chill buried deep in her bones, gave her an unsettling darkness that naturally inspired fear. Knock, knock, knock. Someone tapped on the bedroom door. Ava turned toward the entrance and saw someone standing there. A woman dressed in a dark teal Chinese-style outfit. She was tall and extremely slender. Her pale skin had a fragile, almost sickly quality. She had narrow, elegant eyes, with the outer corners slightly raised, and a faint reddish tint that made her look dangerously intense. The edges of her thin lips were slightly pale, while the center was vividly red and beautiful. Beautiful, but dangerous. Ava immediately lowered her head. Boss Evelyn, you're here. She backed away 2 steps, and only stopped when her waist hit the wall. Ms. Shaw won't be back until tonight. Boss Evelyn, please come in. Everyone in the room hurried out at once, leaving only Evelyn and me behind. I remained seated on the stool, watching the person at the doorway through the mirror. My back tightened. My second sister, Evelyn, walked up behind me. Her long, pale hand settled on my shoulder, and her thumb slowly traced the tattoo across my back. I still remember when you left. You cried and said you wanted to live in the light. Looks like life in the light didn't treat you very well either. I lowered my eyes, helplessness sinking into my gaze. You're right, Evelyn. I thought I was choosing a life in the light. I didn't realize I was walking straight into hell. Evelyn gave a calm smile. I went to see you once. Yeah, I watched you from a distance at school for a little while. I've always respected your wishes more than anything. You said you wanted to cut all ties with the past. So of course I remembered. I'm sorry, Evelyn. Guilt stirred inside me. It's fine. You're back now, aren't you? Evelyn lowered her eyes gently and carefully lifted a strand of my hair between her fingers. Her hair is shorter. You're so different from how you used to be. You really look like an adult now. Evelyn sighed softly, then bent down. Her hands slid from my shoulders along my arms, wrapping around me from behind like an embrace, before closing around my hands. Ryan, how about I help you get revenge? If I want them dead, none of them will survive past midnight tonight. I'll return every single thing they did to you, and you can watch them die with your own eyes. My entire body went rigid. Of course, I knew exactly what my sister was capable of. She could kill every one of them, silently, painfully, without leaving a trace. I forced a smile. Evelyn, Victoria already said. She'd let me handle this myself. Evelyn chuckled softly beside my ear. Victoria has a terrible temper, but she listens to you more than anyone. She can't stand seeing you put in a difficult position, but I don't want anything capable of threatening you to remain in this world. I'm afraid you'll get hurt. Evelyn smiled gently. Everything your sister does is for your own good. You'll understand eventually. The woman behind me felt frighteningly cold, and goosebumps rose across my arms. I hurriedly smiled. Evelyn, can we stop talking about that? We haven't seen each other in so long. How have your medical skills been? Tell me what you've been doing lately. I spoke while getting to my feet. Evelyn's smile looked completely harmless. Her eyes held no one but me, like an abyss deep enough to swallow me whole. When she saw me stand, she took my hand and led me downstairs. Then she said calmly, "They're all dead." I froze. Who's dead? The people who tried to force you away from us are all dead. Evelyn continued walking at an easy pace, as though she were discussing something completely insignificant. She felt my hand tremble slightly, and guessed that she might have frightened me by being too direct. But everything she had done was for me. Surely, sooner or later, I would understand her intentions. My face had gone pale, and my back remained stiff. Evelyn led me over to the sofa and sat down beside me. Ava came over to pour tea. Out of habit, Evelyn took the first sip herself, only after confirming there was nothing wrong with it. Did she hand the other cup to me? Ryan, you're too kind. That makes it easy for people to deceive you. Those people never wanted what was best for you. If they truly had, I never would have hurt them. They only wanted you gone so they could take your place. You understand that, don't you? Of course I understood. There was never much room for kindness inside the Shadow Organization. The people who had plotted to drive me away wanted status, better resources, and one less competitor standing in their way. But I had simply taken advantage of their plans. So I couldn't exactly say they had used me. Evelyn placed the warm cup of tea into my hands. You should drink more warm water. You haven't been feeling sick these past few days, have you? You suffered a lot when you were little, so your health has never been especially strong. I still remember the first time you got sick. You were miserable the entire night. Back then, I kept thinking about what I could do to make you hurt less. I wished I could take the pain for you. Even Evelyn found the memory a little funny now. She was a woman. How could she possibly experience that pain in her little brother's place? Does it still hurt now? I forced a smile. Sometimes it's still uncomfortable, but I can handle it. Evelyn's eyes filled with genuine concern. Soft and deep like moonlight. I'll cure you. She raised her hand and gently touched the side of my face, comforting me in a soft voice. I can't stand seeing you suffer. I held the cup and took a sip of warm water. Beside us, Ava had gone completely pale. Even though Evelyn was only talking about a minor health problem, she made it sound like I was terminally ill. But Ava didn't find it funny at all. She was terrified. At least Miss Shaw usually showed signs before she killed someone. Boss Evelyn was completely different. 1 second, she could be smiling sweetly, and the next, she might suddenly take someone's life. She was terrifying. I noticed Ava's hands trembling slightly. Ava, go help me straighten up my room. I don't like things being messy. Ava looked as if she'd just been granted a pardon, and hurried away. I pretended to remain calm, but the woman beside me chuckled softly. My Ryan is still as kind as ever. I don't kill innocent people indiscriminately. You don't need to worry. You used to tell me I treated human life like it meant nothing. I've already changed that. You'll see how different I am now. Evelyn had expected my reaction. I know you'll need some time to adjust. That's fine. I'll prove it to you. Ava reached the staircase and looked down. She saw Evelyn sitting on the sofa, smiling at me with her complete attention fixed on me. Ava patted her chest and let out a long breath. The cook, Mia, spotted her and immediately waved. Ava, there's nobody left on the first floor. Of course there isn't. None of us are close to Boss Evelyn. Ava looked like she wanted to cry. Boss Evelyn makes everyone want to stay as far away as possible. Let's observe a second of silence for the young master. While they were talking, they saw Evelyn lean closer to me, as if she were whispering something intimate into my ear. Ava's face grew a little warm, and she quickly turned away. Some things weren't meant to be seen or overheard. Downstairs, I chatted with Evelyn for a while, until her phone suddenly rang. She smiled and gently ruffled my hair. "Ryan, I need to take care of something." She still looked reluctant to leave. "I'll be back soon." I nodded. "Okay." I watched Evelyn walk toward the backyard, and only then did I pat my chest in relief. I was finding it harder and harder to understand what my second sister was thinking. I took out my phone and noticed a missed call. It was from my former teammate, Jason Song. Jason had been calling me every now and then lately. He probably knew I'd returned to the organization. I picked up my phone and called him back. Beep beep. After a while, someone finally answered. I got up and walked toward the kitchen. "Jason, have you been looking for me lately? Given our relationship, I doubt you're calling just to catch up. You really haven't changed. I heard you're back." There was a lot of noise on Jason's end, and his voice was filled with resentment. "Life didn't work out for you, and you still had the nerve to come back to the organization? Do you have any idea how badly you screwed us over?" Jason gritted his teeth. "If it weren't for you, I would have been promoted a long time ago, and I wouldn't be hunted by second boss like some stray dog. I only recently heard what happened to all of you." I fell silent for a moment. "Did Evelyn personally go after you?" Jason paused. It took nearly a minute before he finally answered. "After you left, Number 7 and the others started spreading rumors about you. They said you left the organization because of a woman, and said some other nasty things too, like how you got dumped and nearly lost your life over it." Jason stopped there, probably because even he knew they had gone too far. Back then, they had acted out of jealousy and impulse, without expecting things to spiral so badly. Jason coughed several times over the phone. He sounded extremely weak. "Do you have any idea what kind of hell that day was?" Just remembering Evelyn's rage made Jason tremble with fear. "This all happened because of you. It's all your fault." I pressed my lips together. "If you hadn't gone out of your way to stir up trouble, none of this would have happened. We were jealous of you." Jason let out a bitter laugh, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Every one of the 12 Shura is insanely powerful. So why do they all have to revolve around you? There are plenty of people in the organization who envy you. They're just too afraid to show it openly. So don't get too proud. The moment you lose their affection, you'll end up just like us. Be careful that all that love doesn't turn against you someday." I didn't respond with insults. I was about to say something else when the call abruptly disconnected. When I tried calling back, his phone was already turned off. Strange, I frowned. We had been talking just fine. Why had his phone suddenly shut off? I thought about it. Maybe his battery had died, or maybe he simply didn't want to talk anymore. Meanwhile, beneath an overpass, Jason stared in terror at the man in black standing in front of him. "Second boss said she wouldn't kill me. Who gave you permission to contact the young master?" The man's voice was chillingly cold. "Your phone has been tapped for a long time. We've been monitoring you constantly. The moment you dared disrespect the young master, you signed your own death warrant." 2 minutes later, the sound of something hitting the water echoed out. The area beneath the bridge was completely empty. Not a single person remained. Evelyn looked at the message on her phone, and a cold smile curved across her lips. But the moment she heard footsteps behind her, the smile vanished. She turned toward me and held out her hand. "The doctors have arrived at the gate." "Doctors?" I looked confused. "I need to understand your physical condition before I can feel at ease." I frowned. Several cars drove into the villa grounds. Doctors stepped out one after another, carrying all kinds of advanced medical equipment inside. The rest of the villa was quickly cleared out. When I saw the syringes and blood-drawing equipment, I couldn't help breaking into a nervous sweat. "Evelyn, I'm perfectly healthy." Evelyn took my hand. "Ryan, you're already an adult, and you're still scared of this?" "I'm not scared. I just think this is too strange. I don't like feeling controlled." Evelyn patted my back. Her long, slender fingers, pale as carved ivory, rested against the soft fabric of my clothes, gently soothing me again and again. "I'm doing this for your own good." The doctors all wore masks and remained completely silent, almost like emotionless machines. I tried to pull my hand free from Evelyn's grip, but her fingers were like iron clamps. I couldn't break free at all. Evelyn tightened her grip around my wrist, and a trace of darkness entered her gaze. "Ryan, don't be disobedient. My heart trembled. Evelyn immediately released me, then carefully cradled my hand in both of hers, and blew softly over the reddened skin around my wrist. I'm sorry, Ryan, I hurt you. The doctors continued working in an orderly fashion, drawing blood, running tests, and performing examinations. Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner. And watch the continuation first. You can tap it yourself to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. Flash calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of the city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, my heart trembled. Evelyn released my hand, then carefully cradled it again and blew softly over my reddened wrist. I'm sorry, Ryan. I hurt you. The doctors continued working methodically, drawing blood, running tests, and performing examinations. Evelyn changed into a white medical coat and pulled on a pair of gloves. She picked up an instrument and gently held my chin. The plain white coat only made her stunning features stand out even more. She lowered her eyes and coaxed softly, Ryan, open your mouth. Out of the corner of my eye, I glanced at the 2 assistants beside her. Tomic, both of them looked extremely serious. I pressed my lips together before obediently opening my mouth. I felt a cold pair of forceps enter. Evelyn's expression was focused, yet gentle. Her thumb rested lightly against the corner of my lips. The unfamiliar sensation made my entire body tense. I wasn't used to being examined so closely in front of other people. Time seemed to move painfully slowly. My mind gradually went blank, and I awkwardly clenched the corner of my clothes. Evelyn spoke in her cool, calm voice. Your teeth are in good condition, but your wisdom teeth have already come in. Evelyn let out a soft laugh. You really have grown up. Good boy, Ryan. Let's take an x-ray and see how they look. Next time, I'll remove them myself. By the time the full examination was finished, the sky had already gone dark, and it was 9 o'clock at night. I didn't look particularly happy. Still dressed in my sharp formal suit, I sat curled up on the sofa, with my arms wrapped around my legs, staring coldly at the large group of people in front of me. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, listening as the doctors reported one set after another of numbers. That meant absolutely nothing to me. She held a thick stack of reports in her hand, and her expression gradually relaxed. The tension in her eyes faded, and even her posture became much calmer. I felt like I was listening to a foreign language and rubbed my stomach. I was starting to get hungry. Ava and the others had all been sent upstairs, so there wasn't even anyone around to bring me something to eat. When Victoria finally returned after receiving the news, she saw the scene in front of her and immediately looked jealous and displeased. Her sharp eyes turned icy, and her thin lips pressed tightly together as she struggled to contain her temper. What exactly are you doing, Evelyn? She strode over and swept the papers straight out of Evelyn's hands. The reports scattered through the air, pages filled with medical data fluttering everywhere. Evelyn raised her eyes and smiled at Victoria. Fortunately, I've already memorized every single result and stored it all in my head. There isn't a single person in this world who understands Ryan's physical condition better than I do. Not even Ryan himself. Victoria pressed her lips together, barely suppressing her temper. And what good does that do? Evelyn gave a soft laugh, then stood up and waved her hand. You can all leave now. The doctors hurriedly packed up their equipment. In less than 10 minutes, they had disappeared without leaving a single trace behind. Evelyn seemed to be in a good mood. She looked down at me from above as I sat on the sofa, already getting sleepy. Ryan, are you hungry? Sorry. I lost track of time while I was working. Victoria ordered the servants to prepare dinner. It was already 9 o'clock. The thought that Evelyn hadn't let her little brother eat or drink anything made Victoria lower her eyes with a cold smile. Her gaze was anything but friendly. If you've stayed long enough, leave. Evelyn clicked her tongue. I can leave, but Ryan is coming with me. Don't even think about it. Evelyn raised her narrow eyes. A dark shadow settled deep within them. I looked at Victoria, then at Evelyn. I sighed. Aren't the others supposed to be coming today too? We still haven't heard anything from them. So they're probably not coming tonight, right? They'll arrive one after another. Just not today. D. Victoria removed the expensive watch from her wrist and casually tossed it onto the coffee table. Her voice softened slightly. Ryan, eat dinner. You're malnourished. You shouldn't be going hungry. Evelyn knew Victoria was irritated with her, but she didn't care. She washed her hands and changed out of her white coat, then sat elegantly at the dining table. Whenever she faced outsiders, she carried the refined air of a frail gentleman. Her slender back remained perfectly straight. He had always loved reading, especially medical books. Anyone who didn't know her would truly think she was a detached, elegant scholar. Mia and Ava hurried over to attend to me. I'll go change into something comfortable. With that, I headed upstairs. Only the two women remained at the dining table. Doria's eyes turned sharp and cold. Did you come here just to torture Ryan? You know exactly how much he means to me. I can't even bear to hurt him in the slightest. Victoria sneered. A dark light flickered through her deep-set eyes. Then what was the point of putting on such a huge spectacle? What exactly were you trying to do? Evelyn rested one hand on the table and tapped the surface twice with her fingertips. She said softly, Claire has never touched him. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and a smile curved the corner of her lips. Victoria stared at her coldly and immediately understood what she meant, no matter what her little brother had experienced before. Victoria didn't care, because I was the only treasure in her heart. And if she had touched him? Simple. Evelyn clicked her tongue. I'd lock her away and cut her apart piece by piece. It would be a good test of my knife skills. She raised her hand and examined her clean, pale fingers. Her skin was so fair that the blue veins on the back of her hand were clearly visible. I'd just have to make sure she stayed alive until the very last cut. A hint of obsessive madness appeared in Evelyn's eyes. Even then, she seemed to think the punishment wouldn't be enough. Ava, who was serving beside them, trembled like a leaf. Her face went completely pale as she set down the dishes. Apparently, Ava was the only victim in this entire situation. She bowed respectfully and backed away. Once she reached the kitchen, sweat poured down her face. Mia looked at her in confusion. What's wrong with you? Nothing. Just severe emotional trauma. Ava leaned against the wall. You can serve the dishes later. Mia shook her head. No way. I don't dare. Ava sighed. Then should we play rock, paper, scissors? Mia thought about the two terrifying women outside. How about we wait until the young master comes downstairs before serving anything? Ava nodded immediately. Good idea. I'll do what you say. Thump, thump. I came downstairs in comfortable clothes, holding my old phone in one hand. I casually glanced through the messages on WeChat. Most of them had been sent by members of the Lin family. I sat down at the dining table and immediately sensed the strange atmosphere. So I quietly put my phone away. You two must be hungry too. Come on, let's eat. You didn't eat properly at the Lin family's house? Evelyn acted as though nothing had happened and served me a bowl of soup. You're malnourished, and your stomach isn't healthy either. Stomach problems can become serious very quickly, so we can't ignore them. I'll take care of you properly from now on. Victoria frowned. And yet you still made him go hungry. Evelyn corrected her patiently. It won't happen again. Ava and Mia hurried out to serve the food. The moment the entire table was filled, they immediately escaped again. The villa became empty and quiet once more. At least on the surface, not a single servant could be seen. I took a sip of soup. While my sisters casually discussed matters involving the organization, their conversation was cryptic, so I didn't interrupt. I looked down at WeChat again, and suddenly saw Mrs. Lin's profile picture jump to the top. It was a mass message. Our beloved Logan has achieved outstanding results and entered a prestigious university. What a wonderful occasion. We're holding a special graduation banquet to celebrate, and sincerely invite everyone to attend. My expression darkened. A graduation banquet for someone who stole my place? And they still had the nerve to make such a huge show of it? Looks like the Lin family was still doing just fine. I pressed my lips together and sneered inwardly. Then, using my identity as CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals, I ordered my people to leak some news. Tomorrow, I would also hold a graduation banquet. Ryan, why do you suddenly look unhappy? Evelyn turned toward me, immediately noticing the change in my mood. I smiled. It's nothing. I'm planning to hold a graduation banquet tomorrow at 3 p.m. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Her expression remained calm, but a hint of amusement appeared in her gaze. Sounds good. I'm looking forward to your banquet. She held her spoon and slowly stirred the hot soup in front of her. It'd be even better if we could bring all those blind fools over to watch. What kind of gift do you want, Ryan? He smiled, her eyes overflowing with affection for me. Anything is fine. Victoria also spoke up. I'll handle the arrangements. Anyone important in this city will have to attend. No one would dare refuse me. I looked at my sisters. Warmth filled my heart. They didn't even ask why. They simply stood behind me without hesitation. It felt good. I've already arranged everything. You only need to show up. But your identities are pretty sensitive. Won't moving around openly attract too much attention? Evelyn gently touched the side of my face. I don't care about attracting attention. Victoria stared at Evelyn's hand. Her expression turned completely black, and she snapped the chopsticks in her hand. At the Lynn residence, Logan saw that his mother had already sent out the invitations, and smiled warmly. Mom, Woohoo Hotel is the biggest hotel in the city. You really went all out this time. Mrs. Lynn smiled helplessly. Of course your graduation banquet has to be grand. It'll also help wash away some of the bad luck hanging over our family. And more importantly, business hasn't been going very well lately. Your dad wants to use this opportunity to reconnect with some old friends. She smiled affectionately. But you're still the star of the banquet, Logan. I've already arranged for people to decorate the venue for you. Look, so many people have already replied with congratulations. They're all saying how promising you are. I guarantee it'll be a huge event. I'll invite even more people, so everyone can see how impressive you are. Logan was delighted. The atmosphere at home had been awful lately, and it had been a long time since he'd felt this happy. Mom, you really do love me the most. As two of the most feared members of the Shadow Organization, Evelyn and Victoria were united whenever it came to their little brother. There was no doubt they would stand on the same side. At least in front of me, they would get along peacefully. But because both of them wanted my affection for themselves, there was always an undercurrent of rivalry between them. That night, I lay in bed. As scrolling through recent news on my phone, before long, I fell peacefully asleep. I woke up right on time at 8 the next morning. Ava was already waiting outside the door. The moment she heard movement, she knocked and came inside. Young master, Boss Evelyn gave instructions to prepare some medicinal tonic for you. Should I bring it up now? I waved my hand. Thanks for the trouble. Ava quickly said it wasn't any trouble. If all she had to do was serve the young master, then life couldn't possibly be considered difficult. After changing clothes and washing up, I stepped out of the bathroom and saw Evelyn sitting on a chair. She was holding a thick freshman handbook and casually flipping through it. Ryan got into an excellent university, and I was sure college life would be fulfilling for him. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Her pale skin looked even colder beneath the sunlight. I was looking forward to college too. In my previous life, I never got to experience it properly. The only time I'd ever spent on a college campus was while filming, and even then, it had only been for a few months. My education had always been something people mocked me for, no matter how famous I became. I was still just a male celebrity who had only graduated from high school. A university was the best university in the province, and ranked among the top 10 nationwide. I sat down on the bed, looking at the photos in the freshman handbook. I was definitely going to cherish these 4 years of college. Evelyn noticed the happiness in my eyes, and couldn't help relaxing her expression. Ava came upstairs carrying a bowl of medicine. Inside the porcelain white bowl, the dark herbal liquid steamed gently. A strong medicinal smell immediately hit my nose. The thick bitterness filled the room. Young master. Boss Evelyn asked me to bring this up. It looks so bitter. I wrinkled my nose. What kind of medicine is this? Evelyn took the bowl and stirred it with a spoon. Your digestion isn't very good, and your body is still weak. Traditional herbal medicine will help condition your body. Evelyn had taken countless medicines since childhood. After being sick for so long, she'd practically become her own doctor. She had studied countless ancient medical texts, and that was how she developed such extraordinary medical skill. She scooped up a spoonful and tasted the medicine first. I looked at her. My sister still had that same habit. Anything meant for me to eat or drink, she would always taste first. I raised my hand and rested it on Evelyn's arm. Evelyn, she paused. Then she remembered that this was Victoria's home, so naturally there shouldn't be any problem. Still, being careful never hurt. Evelyn still remembered when I was 10 years old, and one of her enemies poisoned me. I had actually been healthy as a child. Otherwise, I never could have survived growing up in an orphanage. But that poisoning had damaged my body at its foundation, all because she had been careless. Evelyn swallowed hard. Her voice carried a trace of pain. Ryan, you don't need to become an assassin. I'll protect you. I'll always owe you for what happened. You don't need to become strong enough to fight for yourself. As long as I'm here, no one will hurt even a hair on your head. No, Evelyn. Why are you thinking about the past again? I sighed helplessly, then tilted my head and leaned against her. A lot of what happened back then wasn't something you wanted either. Besides, I've already recovered. I'm doing fine now. Ava watched the two of us. Most matters involving the Shadow Organization were highly secretive. But this scene still looked surprisingly warm. Ava carried the tray downstairs. Mia saw her smiling to herself. Weren't you terrified of serving them? Why are you smiling so happily now? Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner. And tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé had already canceled our wedding. As a threat. To force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir, I calmly dialed. The number I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Ava watched the two of us. Most matters involving the Shadow Organization were highly secretive, but this scene still looked surprisingly warm. Ava carried the tray downstairs. Mia saw her smiling. Weren't you terrified of serving them? Why are you smiling so happily? It's nothing, Ava giggled. Every one of the 12 Shura is incredible, and none of them are actually related to the young master by blood. I wonder who he'll end up marrying someday. Mia shook her head helplessly. You're thinking way too far ahead. You've really got guts. Ava stuck out her tongue. I'm just hoping Boss Victoria wins in the end. Mia watched Ava walk away and shook her head helplessly. Still, ever since the young master arrived, the boss really had been in a much better mood. Upstairs, I drank the medicine 1 spoonful at a time. Evelyn patiently fed me the entire bowl. By the time I finished, I felt absolutely miserable. My throat was filled with bitter flavor. Even my breath smelled like herbal medicine. Evelyn took a piece of candy and slipped it into my mouth. Her thumb also gently wiped away a trace of medicine from my lips. My lips were soft, and Evelyn's eyes curved with amusement. Sweetness spread through my mouth, quickly washing away the bitterness. I held the candy in my mouth. What kind of candy is this? It's really good, and not too sweet. Winter melon hard candy. Evelyn wiped her hands with a clean handkerchief. You used to love these, don't you remember? I shook my head. I really don't. When I was little, candy was a luxury. Just staying alive was already good enough. Evelyn hooked a finger around the loose hair near my forehead. If you want it, you can have it every day from now on. My ear felt itchy, and the place her fingers touched felt cool. I instinctively took Evelyn's hand, looking a little confused. Evelyn, why are your hands always so cold? I've wanted to ask you since I saw you again. Are you still not feeling well? Evelyn smiled faintly. I was born like this. The afternoon arrived quickly. Logan stood in front of the mirror, turning from side to side. He was wearing a light purple suit, with a fitted cut, and refined detailing along the hem. He had added several accessories, and deliberately styled his hair to look especially handsome. Mom, does this look good? Mrs. Lin smiled at him. It looks wonderful. That suit cost tens of thousands, but it was absolutely worth it. You can drive the car your second sister gave you today. Your classmates will be there too. Let them see the difference. Logan nodded. That's true. They all just graduated from high school. Some of them are already working part-time just to pay tuition. Unlike me, I can already drive a luxury car worth hundreds of thousands. Logan checked his phone. Some people have already left. We should get going too. He picked up a handbag. Mom, you have to take some good photos of me today. Mrs. Lin naturally agreed, but Olivia, standing near the doorway, looked cold and distant. Grace had disappeared somewhere entirely. Olivia, where's Grace? You two have both been acting so strange lately. Olivia glanced at everyone's cheerful expressions. She understood exactly why Grace wasn't here. Olivia, don't be unhappy every day. Logan casually reached out to hook his arm through hers. Want me to cheer you up? No need. Olivia instinctively avoided his hand, but when she saw Logan's expression fall, she immediately regretted it. Logan's smile stiffened. Olivia, why are you being so cold to me? Did I do something to upset you? I'm starting school the day after tomorrow. Even if you don't like being around me, there are only 2 days left. Olivia felt suffocated. I'm not angry at you. I'm just in a bad mood myself. Logan no longer wanted to talk to her, but to maintain his image. He forced down his frustration and smiled. All right. Olivia, I know you've been upset lately. It's fine. I'll head downstairs first. Mrs. Lin pointed at Olivia. Look at your brother. He's being so considerate of you. And you're still making him feel bad. Olivia clenched her hanging hand into a fist. I'm sorry. I'll try to control my temper. Sophia's hair was styled perfectly, and she wore an elegant tailored outfit. Her entire appearance radiated refinement. She was sitting on the sofa when she saw Logan come downstairs, and immediately asked with concern, Logan, what's wrong? Why do you look upset? Logan pressed his lips together. It's nothing. Madison cared about her little brother more than anyone. After his humiliation at the last banquet, he had finally gotten something worth celebrating, yet he was still frowning. She walked over. Logan, let's go. Ride with me. Mom said I could drive myself. Logan forced a smile. How about you ride with me instead, Madison? Madison waved her hand and followed Logan outside. Sophia frowned as she looked at Olivia. You need to get your emotions under control. Instead of taking them out on Logan every day. Another sister toyed with the car keys in her hand and joked, What? Are we supposed to mourn Ryan for 3 years? Just because he died. None of us are allowed to be happy anymore. Olivia, don't be so controlling. Olivia lowered her head. She still remembered Grace's message. Ryan is alive. Sooner or later, she would see him for herself. At Woohoo Hotel, Logan and his family got out of their cars. The hotel was one of the most prestigious in the entire city, with an enormous landscaped estate. Handsome attendants stood beside the magnificent entrance. Good afternoon, Mr. Lin. Your banquet is ready. Please come in. Mrs. Lin nodded. Have all of our guests arrived? The attendant froze for a moment. Not many have arrived yet. Maybe they're still on the way. Mrs. Lin's heart skipped a beat, and an uneasy feeling rose inside her. The Lin family's banquet was on the 3rd floor. We went upstairs, but aside from Claire and a few of her friends, there was almost no one there. Mrs. Lin checked her phone. It was already 2 in the afternoon. David also stepped out of the elevator and frowned. Did you notify everyone properly? Why is nobody here? Mrs. Lin was flustered. I don't know either. Maybe they'll arrive a little later. That was what she said. But she hurriedly pulled out her phone and started messaging people on WeChat. They had planned for 200 guests and prepared dozens of tables. They had originally worried that only half the invitees might come, but now they couldn't even fill a single table. Mrs. Lin called one of her friends. Hey, Jack, why aren't you here yet? I'm in a rush. I'm buying a gift right now. Can't talk. I'm busy. Mrs. Lin froze when she heard that. She stared at her phone in confusion. Buying a gift? Maybe. Maybe he thinks Logan did so well that he needs to prepare something special. Logan immediately brightened. It's because of you, Mom. You're close with Uncle Jack, so of course he's taking it seriously. You only notified him yesterday, and he's always busy with business. It's normal that he only found time to buy a gift now. That makes sense. Mrs. Lin thought about it and decided the explanation was reasonable. Then there's no need to worry. The elevator doors opened again with a ding. Mrs. Lin immediately looked over, but only a dozen students stepped out. Logan, congratulations on getting into college. This is a gift from our class. Logan accepted the present. He was just about to smile when he spotted his longtime rival, the class academic representative, Nathan Lee. Nathan looked at Logan. Congratulations. But whether that admission spot really belongs to you, you know better than anyone. Nathan scoffed. You're celebrating someone else's achievement. Be careful. Karma doesn't catch up with you. Nathan had already figured it out. Ryan had always ranked first. There was no way he hadn't gotten into college. So how had Logan suddenly gotten into a university? Anyone with a brain could tell something was wrong. The other students were looking at Logan strangely too, afraid of being embarrassed in front of his dad. Logan quickly led them toward the most isolated tables. Once Nathan sat down, he looked around. Woohoo Hotel is ridiculously expensive. Your family really treats you well. Logan forced a smile. We're classmates, and today's supposed to be a happy day for me. So let's not talk about irrelevant things. What, are you scared? Nathan sneered. He simply couldn't stand seeing how hard Ryan had worked, how desperately he had studied, only for Logan to take his place. Seriously. Back in senior year, who would have guessed that the handsome school celebrity and Ryan were actually biological brothers? The others nodded in agreement. Exactly. Ryan barely talked to anyone. He kept wearing the same worn-out shoes even after they were falling apart. Tyler added, I remember he always took the bus. Emma nodded too. Yeah. Ryan worked incredibly hard when he first transferred in from the countryside. Even the homeroom teacher didn't really like him. Nathan looked straight at Logan. You're the rich young master. And Ryan was nothing but your stepping stone. There's plenty of unfairness in this world. But I believe justice comes eventually. Logan's expression turned ugly. He forced out a stiff smile. If you came here just to ruin my mood, you can leave? After saying that, he stopped pretending and walked toward his parents with a dark expression. Emma scoffed, then whispered, Nathan, are we really okay being this harsh on him? Why wouldn't we be? That admission spot obviously belonged to Ryan. They might not have been close friends with Ryan, but they had competed against him on the grade rankings for years. That created its own kind of bond. David looked at Logan with a dark expression. Everything arranged? Yes. Don't let any important guests arrive. And hear that your admission spot wasn't honestly earned. Logan felt wronged. Dad, I've handled everything. Sorry for making you worry. David gave a cold snort. Go downstairs and wait. Then he and Mrs. Lin entered the elevator together. Mrs. Lin wanted to comfort her son, but with her husband looking so furious, she didn't dare say anything. Claire walked over and patted Logan's shoulder. Don't worry. I asked my dad to come too. There'll be plenty of people here to support you. Only then did Logan relax. Claire, thank you. Let's go downstairs and wait too. The guests should be arriving soon. The Lin family went downstairs together to the lobby and waited. David stared grimly through the massive glass entrance. Outside was completely empty. There wasn't a single luxury car in sight. He checked his phone. It was already 2:30. Every minute felt like an eternity. He personally called several old friends. At the very least, they couldn't end up with no one showing up. A terrible thought crossed his mind. Had offending the business association president last time, and also offending Manhwa Pharmaceuticals, really gotten the entire Lin family blacklisted? Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart, without the slightest hesitation. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, the Lin family went downstairs together to the lobby and waited. David stared grimly through the massive glass entrance. Outside was completely empty. Not a single luxury car appeared. He checked his phone. It was already 2:30. Every minute felt like an eternity. He personally called several old friends. At the very least, they couldn't end up with no one showing up. A terrible thought crossed his mind. Had offending the business association president last time, and Manhwa Pharmaceuticals as well, really gotten the Lin family blacklisted? David's shoulders sagged slightly. His face turned pale, and his heart felt ice cold, even though it was late August, and the temperature was pushing 40 degrees Celsius. His heart felt as though it had been plunged into freezing water. Honey, cars are coming. Mrs. Lin suddenly cried out. Look! David immediately straightened his back and hurried toward the entrance. The first license plate looked familiar. The car stopped, and several more vehicles appeared behind it. It was already past 2:40. Yet more than 10 cars suddenly arrived at once. Mercedes, BMWs, Audis. They poured in and nearly blocked the entire driveway. The moment David saw who stepped out of the first car, he hurried over and grabbed his hand. Mr. Lewis, weren't you overseas? You actually rushed back today. You're really giving me a lot of face. Mr. Lewis instinctively shook his hand and laughed. Of course. A graduation banquet is a major occasion. Even if I had to crawl back from overseas, I'd still make it. Who in our circle would dare miss this? As he spoke, he casually asked, I'm the first one here, right? David's face immediately brightened. Mr. Lewis was an extremely wealthy businessman, and he was actually showing David this much respect. David quickly nodded. Yes, you're the first one here, Mr. Lewis. Come upstairs to the 2nd floor and have some tea. The 2nd floor? I thought it was the 7th floor. Mr. Lewis frowned. David laughed awkwardly. You're getting older. Must have remembered it wrong. Come on, come on. It's going to be lively today. Mrs. Lin quickly greeted the other executives behind him and led them toward the second floor, unable to stop smiling. When they reached the second floor, Mr. Lewis looked around and realized he really was the first to arrive. He enthusiastically patted David on the shoulder. Good, good. I never knew you were this capable, Mr. Lin. You actually managed to organize this graduation banquet. I really underestimated you before. Turns out you've got some serious connections. Mr. Lewis thought for a moment. You came to my company before to discuss a partnership, didn't you? Yes. David's expression instantly turned serious. Was Mr. Lewis actually going to discuss business with him? Mr. Lewis smiled. After we finish drinking, let's sit down and talk properly about that deal. David's eyes immediately lit up with excitement. Nearby, Mrs. Lin whispered to Logan. That's Mr. Lee from Jiahe Beauty. That one is Mr. Song from Shenkong Group. And over there is Mr. Zhao from Haitian Hotel. Logan listened carefully. They were all CEOs of famous major companies. And every one of them had actually come. Were these all people you invited on WeChat, Mom? Mrs. Lin nodded. She hadn't expected that after sending out those invitations. So many of these people would actually show up. This gave the Lin family enormous prestige. After today, the family's business would surely become much easier with connections like these, turning around the Lin family's recent difficulties. Be effortless. Someone noticed Mrs. Lin greeting the guests and smiled. You're Mrs. Lin, aren't you? Your son has a bright future. Mrs. Lin smiled. Of course. And thank you all for coming. She was thrilled. Her vanity had never felt more satisfied. Her son had gotten into a university. How could he not have a promising future once he went to the capital? Everyone, please head up to the second floor. I've prepared some excellent tea. The guests nodded and began looking at Mrs. Lin with newfound respect. Normally, someone of Mrs. Lin's status wasn't worth mentioning. She usually relied on the Moore family just to get opportunities to appear in these circles. Getting important people to take her seriously was never easy. Usually, only families with similar wealth, in the tens of millions, would associate with the Lins. The Moore family brought the Lins into higher circles, only because of Claire. But this graduation banquet was unexpectedly being hosted by Mrs. Lin and her family. It looked like the Lin family was about to rise rapidly. Mrs. Lin, how about we have afternoon tea together tomorrow? Someone handed her a business card. Mrs. Lin was flattered. Of course, of course. I'm free anytime. She accepted one business card after another, while calculating inwardly. If all of these people could cooperate with the Lin family, that would be incredible. The guests were all escorted to the second floor. Another Lin sister hurried downstairs. Mom, why are there so many people? Dozens of tables are already full. Mrs. Lin had been too busy celebrating to notice. Oh no, I didn't expect this many guests either. Go open several more banquet halls on the second floor and add another 50 tables. She nodded. Okay, wait. Mrs. Lin stopped her fourth daughter and lowered her voice. Upgrade all the food too. These big bosses have eaten every delicacy imaginable. I underestimated the status of the people coming today. It doesn't matter if we spend a fortune this time. Her daughter understood and immediately went to find the hotel manager. Good fortune had finally come to the Lin family. Mrs. Lin felt completely refreshed, as though all the frustration she'd carried lately had finally disappeared. Madison frowned. Mom, are you sure about this? The cars from earlier have already left, and now another dozen luxury cars are arriving. Every one of them is worth over $1 million. Looking at the license plates, Madison recognized people she had seen in elite circles before. Mrs. Lin frowned. Sure about what? Are you sure all these people came because of your WeChat invitations, Mom? Those people over there are from the government. Mrs. Lin froze. I don't know. She certainly didn't have connections like that. Otherwise, the family's business wouldn't have struggled for so many years. Secretary's son stepped out of a car and glanced at Woohoo Hotel. This place is good. Perfect for a graduation banquet. His secretary accompanied him to the entrance and asked Mrs. Lin, where should we put the gift? Mrs. Lin's entire body went numb. This was Secretary's son. Secretary son, please come in. The gifts can be placed on the second floor. Sweat appeared on her forehead. My God. Even Secretary's son had come. And the people arriving behind him were even more important. One of the executives from Manhwa Pharmaceuticals stepped out of a car. He looked somewhat surprised when he saw Logan, but when he noticed the graduation banquet welcome sign, his expression froze. "This graduation banquet is yours?" He frowned, clearly surprised, and looked at Logan a few more times. Logan was dressed handsomely today, with none of the miserable appearance he'd had after being beaten at the previous banquet. The moment Logan met the executive's icy gaze, he instinctively stepped backward, feeling deeply humiliated. This was Mr. Hua from Manhwa Pharmaceuticals. Mrs. Lin knew nothing about what had happened before, and greeted him with a smile. "We're so honored that you came personally." Mr. Hua smiled. "Of course. It's a graduation banquet. Such an important occasion deserves a generous gift. Second floor, please." Mrs. Lin smiled brighter than a flower. President Lewis arrived as well. Sweat covered his forehead from rushing over. "I'm not late, am I?" Mr. Hua turned around. "Perfect timing. Let's go up together." President Lewis, Mrs. Lin swallowed hard. Even the president of the business association had arrived. Mrs. Lin wasn't the only one shocked. Even the Woohoo hotel manager was stunned. This was supposed to be a simple graduation banquet. They had originally prepared only a little over 30 tables, yet so many powerful people had arrived. The manager personally walked over and smiled at Mrs. Lin. "Your family really has incredible connections. Then, Secretary Sun, Mr. Hua, and President Lewis are here. On our side. We'll upgrade all your tea to our highest grade, at no extra charge. Also, we'll give every table a bottle of our special house-brewed wine. Would that be acceptable?" Mrs. Lin hadn't expected such treatment, but thinking about it, Woohoo Hotel probably wanted to impress these powerful guests and demonstrated service. "Fine. Thank you for the trouble." By now, even Mrs. Lin's manner of speaking had changed, carrying a hint of arrogance. The manager personally handed her his business card. "This is my card. If you host another banquet in the future, call me directly. I'll personally make sure everything is handled perfectly." "Thank you." Logan took the card and looked at it. His smile grew even wider. He had dressed so handsomely today, and so many important people had come specifically to congratulate him. Logan took a deep breath and silently reminded himself there would be plenty more occasions like this in the future. He might still feel a little overwhelmed and excited today, but next time he would handle it calmly. After all, with his identity, his future was incredibly bright. He would only continue rising, and everything would keep getting better. The manager praised him. "Mr. Lin truly is an exceptional young man. One look at you, and I can tell you're destined for great things. You have extraordinary presence. Your future is bound to be brilliant." Logan grew even more pleased. He tried not to look too proud, but he simply couldn't stop the corners of his mouth from rising. "An exceptional young man," a cool male voice suddenly sounded. "I'm here." The moment Logan heard that voice, his entire body stiffened. When he saw who had arrived, he gritted his teeth. His face turned horribly pale, with fear creeping into his expression. Sterling Pharmaceuticals. He remembered the beating from that night, and instinctively touched his injured arm. He didn't even dare raise his head. He had suffered nightmares for several nights in a row, and had desperately tried to forget everything. Why had he run into this terrifying man again? I wore a custom-tailored, fitted suit. My lightly tanned skin carried a healthy glow. My long legs were straight and slender, perfectly framed by tailored dress pants. My proportions were flawless, and my short hair looked sharp and clean. The hotel manager was visibly impressed. This young man was strikingly handsome, yet his presence was cold enough to keep people at a distance. Behind my broad shoulders, a small black flame tattoo could be seen. I stood out effortlessly from everyone around me. "Sir, your banquet is booked on the 7th floor. I spoke calmly. "The 30 tables should already be full, right?" The manager froze. "There's no one on the 7th floor. Could the guests have been told the wrong time?" I frowned slightly. "The wrong time?" The manager hurriedly contacted his staff. "Our servers on the 7th floor already checked. There really isn't anyone there." Even I found that strange. Mrs. Lin stared at my face, completely dumbfounded. All the excitement she'd felt moments ago vanished. Her face was filled with disbelief. While I was speaking with the manager, Mrs. Lin asked Logan with trembling hands, "Am I seeing things? This man, why did he look exactly like her dead son?" "Because it was me. But why was I completely ignoring her? As if I didn't know any of them at all. Mrs. Lin looked like she'd seen a ghost once the shock passed. Anger immediately rose inside her. For days, she had barely been able to sleep at night. Yet here I was perfectly fine and dressed so elegantly. And I was even pretending not to know her. What was with this attitude? Had I suddenly grown a backbone? Mom, he's not Ryan, Logan hurriedly said. And not they, still looking frightened. He pulled Mrs. Lin aside. Mom, I'm begging you. Don't mistake him for someone else. He's Ethan Allen, the CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals. Logan leaned close to Mrs. Lin's. Heir, and lowered his voice so only the two of them could hear. He's extremely dangerous, and he has powerful people backing him. Whatever you do, don't try to claim he's family. Last time, I made the same mistake. And, Logan remembered the beating he'd suffered. His face alternated between red and pale. He swallowed nervously. He just looks too much like Ryan. But he only recently returned from overseas. Mrs. Lin frowned. How is that possible? There can't be two people in the world who look this identical. Ryan must be playing some kind of trick. You're too innocent. He's fooled you. Mrs. Lin's chest rose and fell with anger. He showed up at your graduation banquet today because he heard about our family's celebration and finally couldn't keep hiding anymore. Mrs. Lin had originally been devastated because she believed I died saving the family. But now that she saw me alive and well, she wasn't nearly as happy as she'd expected. Ryan really was too calculating. His schemes ran far too deep. Logan's face had already gone pale, and he was too exhausted to keep explaining. But he definitely didn't want to die alongside Mrs. Lin. He really isn't Ryan. Just search him online, and you'll see. He's the CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals. You know exactly what Ryan's background was. If he really had anything to do with Sterling Pharmaceuticals, then why would he have stayed at home? And, Logan almost said, and why would he have endured everything silently? But the words made him feel guilty before they even left his mouth. At the very least, he wouldn't have lived so frugally. Mrs. Lin thought about it and had to admit that made sense. Ryan had always been painfully submissive. If he were really the CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals, that would make absolutely no sense. She pulled out her phone and searched for my photo. The results appeared almost immediately. The internet was filled with pictures of me. Most headlines describe me as a mysterious, handsome CEO returning from overseas to attend an elite banquet and being surrounded by powerful figures. The story had already made the news. He really was the CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals. Mrs. Lin's expression finally softened. She never could have imagined that someone who looked so much like me could have such an extraordinary identity. Fate really was strange. But looking at that face, she still couldn't bring herself to treat me respectfully. When she came over to talk, she even carried herself like an elder. Young man, you're hosting a banquet here too? I glanced at Mrs. Lin. What else would I be doing if I weren't here to host a banquet? Do you think I came here because I had nothing better to do? Mrs. Lin immediately grew annoyed. What was with this guy's attitude? Why did every sentence sound like a jab? No matter what, she was still older than him. And today, so many powerful people had come for the Lin family. Their family's future looked brighter than ever. There was no guarantee they'd always be beneath Sterling Pharmaceuticals. The only reason she'd approached me was because her husband had once wanted to establish a relationship with Sterling Pharmaceuticals. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bothered. Heh, you're not very good with people, and you don't speak very pleasantly either. Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Mrs. Lin was furious. What was with this guy's attitude? Why did every sentence sound like a jab? No matter what, she was still older than him. And today, so many powerful people had come. The Lin family's future looked brighter than ever. There was no guarantee they'd always be beneath Sterling Pharmaceuticals. The only reason she'd come over to talk was because her husband had once wanted to establish a relationship with Sterling Pharmaceuticals. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bothered. Heh, you're not very good with people, and you don't speak very pleasantly either. Mrs. Lin gave a disdainful snort, then said smugly, "My eldest son is having his graduation banquet today. We originally prepared dozens of tables, and they're already full. We even had to open several more banquet halls. There are nearly 200 tables now." The hotel manager looked at Logan, then looked at me. Honestly, we didn't look alike at all. Compared with me, Logan's appearance was far more ordinary. But the Lin family was still a major client with strong connections. So the manager knew which side mattered more. You two shouldn't create unnecessary conflict. Actually, this is quite a coincidence. There's also a graduation banquet on the 7th floor. What are the odds? You two gentlemen might even be classmates. Maybe you'll become friends someday. I let out a faint, mocking laugh. Contempt flickered through my eyes. Logan felt deeply uncomfortable too. Be classmates with me? The thought alone made him feel sick. Every time he saw my face, he remembered the humiliation of being beaten. Logan deliberately smiled. Not necessarily. I'm studying one of the university's best programs, and there aren't many students admitted each year. This gentleman only recently came back from overseas, so he's probably enrolled in some international joint program. Mrs. Lin deliberately asked, "I remember international students don't need very high scores, right?" Of course not. Besides, students educated overseas aren't usually as academically strong as ours. Pride appeared in Logan's eyes, so lower admission scores are only natural. Mrs. Lin laughed several times and looked at me with even more disdain. If you're paying your way into school, how do you have the nerve to reserve 300 tables? That's ridiculously excessive. No wonder no one's showing up. Several more cars suddenly arrived. The Moore family's car was right at the front. Mrs. Lin immediately smiled. Oh my. Logan, even Claire's parents came. They said they wouldn't, but they still showed up in the end. Looks like they're doing this for you. Go welcome them. Mrs. Lin still remembered the Moore family saying they'd rather die than associate with the Lins again. Apparently, they'd just been pretending to be tough. Mrs. Lin smiled smugly. They must have seen how many important guests had come to the Lin family's banquet and changed their minds. Power really was what mattered most. Mrs. Lin leisurely stood with Logan near the entrance. Mrs. Moore personally walked over carrying a large gift box. "Mrs. Moore, you're quite late. Luckily, we still saved a table for you." Mrs. Moore had originally spotted me and smiled warmly. But before she could approach, Mrs. Lin blocked her path. The moment Mrs. Moore saw who it was, her expression immediately turned ugly. This woman really was like gum stuck to her shoe. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get rid of her. It was irritating. Mrs. Moore frowned sharply and snapped, "Move, you're blocking the way." "Mrs. Lin, I've already made myself perfectly clear. I don't have time to attend your family's graduation banquet. I have something important to do today. Don't force me to lose my temper with you in public." Mrs. Lin's face immediately fell. Being humiliated like this, in front of so many people, was enough to anger even the most patient person. "Mrs. Moore, what exactly do you mean? I came over here to welcome you politely, and you're insulting me instead?" Mrs. Lin wanted to throw a few insults back, but then remembered that her family still relied heavily on the Moore family, and Claire remained extremely useful to them, so she swallowed her anger. "I'm hosting a graduation banquet too. I thought you were here for ours. If you're not, then I misunderstood." Mrs. Moore gave her a few contemptuous looks. "Your family isn't the only one holding a graduation banquet here today. The banquet I'm attending belongs to the CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals. Your family really picked an unfortunate day. Same day, same place, even the same time as his banquet. I don't know whether to call that incredible timing, or say you brought this humiliation on yourselves." "Aunt Moore, don't say that." Logan frowned, deliberately steadying his voice as he defended his mother. "It's true that the Lin family can't compare to the Moore family right now, but that was in the past. Now, we're slowly improving too." Logan smiled faintly. "We already have around 200 tables filled at today's graduation banquet. Even Mr. Hua and President Lewis came." Mrs. Moore's expression changed. "There's no way President Lewis came to your family's graduation banquet. It's true. If you don't believe me, go up to the 2nd floor and look." Mrs. Moore knew that Sterling Pharmaceuticals' banquet was on the 7th floor. Curiosity rose inside her, but she still went over to greet me first. Mr. Allen, the Moore family specially prepared a generous gift for you today. I hope you'll like it. I gave a slight nod, remaining rather distant toward Mrs. Moore, but just receiving that tiny acknowledgement from me was already enough to make her beam with delight. My daughter behaved recklessly and offended you last time. I hope you won't hold it against us. The Moore family would be honored to have more dealings with Sterling Pharmaceuticals. We all have tremendous respect for your company. Becoming CEO at such a young age is truly remarkable. I had no interest in listening to meaningless flattery. We'll talk about future matters when the time comes. Mrs. Moore immediately agreed, then walked inside with a cheerful smile. Mrs. Lin was surprised by how respectfully Mrs. Moore treated me, but after thinking about it, she found it reasonable. After all, this was Sterling Pharmaceuticals, a Fortune 500 public company that could stand toe-to-toe with the biggest corporations around. Thinking back on her own attitude toward me, Mrs. Lin suddenly smiled. Mr. Allen, there isn't anyone on the 7th floor anyway. Why don't you come sit with us on the 2nd floor and have some tea? Logan didn't particularly want me there. Whenever I was around, he seemed to fade into the background. He was supposed to be the star of today's graduation banquet, but he also understood that his mother wanted to build a relationship with Sterling Pharmaceuticals. So Logan reluctantly added, "That's right. Mr. Allen, come sit with us for a while." I smiled faintly. Sure, I already had a suspicion about what was happening. Before President Lewis arrived, he had specifically contacted my assistant and said he'd prepared a major gift. He had clearly intended to attend my graduation banquet, so why had he gone to the 2nd floor instead? That was worth investigating. I can go. I'm just afraid you won't be able to handle the embarrassment later. Logan sneered inwardly. This guy really knew how to brag. Did he honestly think he could completely overshadow him? Why would I be embarrassed? Every flower needs leaves to make it stand out. If I get to be the background that makes Mr. Allen shine, that would still be an honor. I gave Logan a cool glance. I hope you're still smiling that happily later. The people from the other cars also went inside. Evelyn stepped out of her car. Someone beside her held an umbrella over her. Her entire body remained shaded beneath it as she walked with light, graceful steps. Her Chinese-style outfit made her look almost otherworldly, as though she didn't belong in this world. The moment Logan saw her, he froze. What a beautiful woman. She was almost mesmerizing. While he was still stunned by her beauty, Evelyn had already walked over. Logan pressed his lips together. His throat suddenly felt dry. He wanted to speak, but no words came out. Just as he was about to greet her, Evelyn stepped out from beneath the umbrella and casually draped one long arm over my shoulder. The sunlight seemed a little too bright for her, so she raised one hand to shield her eyes. Her icy pale skin almost seemed to reflect the light. Evelyn, I looked up at her. These two invited us upstairs for some tea. Want to come? Evelyn's gentle gaze shifted toward Logan. For one brief instant, the light in her eyes changed, sinking into something dark and unsettling. Logan grew nervous under her stare. Hello, I'm Logan Lin. Your brother and I attend the same university. It's very lively on the 2nd floor. You two are welcome to come up and sit with us. Logan's palms were slightly sweaty. He had never seen a woman like her before. Beautiful without looking overly delicate, with an aloof elegance in her very bones. He was convinced she had to be a highly educated and refined woman, and he recognized the car she just stepped out of. It was worth tens of millions. If my little brother wants to go, then naturally I'll go with him. Evelyn gently patted my shoulder. Inside the elevator, Logan stood off to one side, watching how close Evelyn and I were. He wanted to speak, but then heard Evelyn lean toward me. Ryan, you smell nice today. Are you wearing cologne? It's probably the scent from my clothes. This suit already smelled like this when it arrived. Maybe they treated the fabric with something. Evelyn's hand slid from my shoulder, slowly down to my waist. This suit really is nice. It makes your waist look lean and strong. Very handsome. Evelyn laughed softly. Her narrow eyes lowered, and the tenderness and affection inside them were almost overwhelming. Logan's entire body tensed. The elevator walls were mirrored, so, unfortunately for him, he could see every interaction between us clearly. A sour feeling of jealousy slowly rose inside him. Such a beautiful woman. Why was she so intimate with her little brother? Ding. The elevator doors opened. It had only been a few seconds, but countless thoughts had already flashed through Logan's mind. The banquet hall on the second floor was already packed with people. It was extremely lively. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, while servers moved between the tables. Wine glasses clinked continuously. Warm amber lighting gave the entire banquet a luxurious, extravagant atmosphere. Everyone was dressed formally, and nearly all of them were familiar faces from the business association. Logan put on a bright smile, then turned toward me beside Evelyn. "Mr. Allen, welcome to my graduation banquet. Would you prefer tea or red wine? I'll have someone prepare it." He was already acting like the host. His eyes shone with excitement, and his smile was full of confidence. When Logan noticed everyone looking over, his smile grew wider. "Just find anywhere you'd like to sit. There are so many guests today. So if our hospitality isn't perfect, please don't hold it against us." David's expression darkened slightly when he saw me appear, but he still came over to greet me. "Thank you for putting aside what happened before and coming to my son's graduation banquet. Sterling Pharmaceuticals really does have extraordinary class." "I admire that." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm just here because I happened to be downstairs. I came up to see what all the excitement was about." David looked awkward. Right, that's fine too. Please have a seat." "No need. We'll only stay for a moment. I still have to go to the 7th floor. Claire was here too." What exactly was going on? How could there be 200 or 300 tables filled here? Today was the graduation banquet of Sterling Pharmaceuticals CEO, W7. Couldn't possibly ignore Mr. Allen's banquet, and instead attend the graduation banquet of the Lin family's fake heir, offend Sterling Pharmaceuticals and Miss Shaw, just to flatter the Lin family? No matter how she thought about it, it made no sense. Claire glanced toward me and saw another exceptionally beautiful woman standing beside me. Pain flashed through her eyes, and she forced herself to look away. This man wasn't Ryan. By then, it was already 3 o'clock. Everyone who saw me wanted to come over and greet me. "Welcome, distinguished guests, to today's graduation banquet. We're delighted to have everyone gathered here." The MC stood on stage holding a microphone, his voice carrying throughout the hall. Everyone paused and returned to their seats. It would be more appropriate to offer toasts after the ceremony. The MC delivered several polite opening remarks. "Now, let's begin by announcing the gift list." He smiled. "And these gifts are extremely generous. Even I have to admit, they've gone far beyond what I expected." Everyone turned toward the MC, worried that their own gift might look embarrassing by comparison. "Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to keep watching." My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé had already canceled our wedding as a threat to force me to give my college admission spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, the MC finished delivering a few polite remarks. "Now, let's announce the gift list." The MC smiled. "These gifts are incredibly generous. Even I have to admit, they've gone far beyond what I imagined." Everyone turned to look at the MC, worried that their own gifts might look embarrassing by comparison. The MC stood on stage, holding a red gift registry. Logan looked slightly surprised when he heard that, then quickly brightened with delight. It seemed everyone had prepared extremely valuable graduation gifts for him. Otherwise, the MC wouldn't have reacted like this. David patted Logan's shoulder. "Logan, all these uncles and aunts think highly of you, so study hard and don't disappoint their expectations." Logan nodded seriously. "I understand, Dad." Mrs. Lin and the others had also come upstairs. Another Lin sister crossed her arms and leaned slightly against the elevator as she watched the stage. Her face was filled with satisfaction. Sophia walked over to Logan and quietly encouraged him with a few words. Logan smiled even more brightly. Grace still hadn't appeared. Madison looked somewhat worried. Olivia sat in a secluded corner, staring fixedly at me. I stood beneath the lights, looking impossibly dazzling. The moment Olivia saw me, she was certain I was her brother, but she didn't dare come any closer. The MC began reading the gift list. Mr. Lee of Jiahahe Beauty has presented a set of premium deep-sea pearl jewelry Mr. Song of Shenkong Group has presented a blood jade dragon ornament. Mr. Zhao of Haitian Hotel has presented a rare provincial treasure and a bolt of premium silk fabric. Secretary Sun of the municipal government has presented a Qing dynasty painting from a renowned antique collection. Mr. Hua of Zhenhua Pharmaceuticals has presented premium ginseng with complete certification. It was one of Zhenhua Pharmaceuticals' prized items from last quarter, valued at over 10 million. President Lewis of the Business Association has presented a parcel of land in the Southern Development Zone. The one plot, measuring 500 square meters. By the end, the MC could barely get the words out. What kind of people were these? How could every one of them be this generous? It was terrifying. He took a deep breath, finished his closing remarks, and hurried off stage. He could brag about hosting this event for the next year or two. Even conservatively, the gifts were worth over 100 million. Logan was completely stunned. His eyes went wide. He wanted to clap, but his hands had gone weak. He felt as though he were floating above the clouds. It was like walking down the street and suddenly having $100 million fall into his lap. Logan's heart pounded wildly. He muttered, "Am I dreaming? They actually gave me this many gifts?" After all, the Lin family only made around 10 million a year. Another Lin sister was equally shocked. This is way too generous. Sophia couldn't understand it. Normally, these people barely had any relationship with the Lin family. Why would they spend this much on a graduation banquet? Madison sighed. I knew something felt wrong. She turned toward David. Gifts worth over 100 million can't be normal. Hearing Madison's words, David looked around. Could they really have delivered the gifts to the wrong banquet? But that possibility seemed unlikely. Unless the Lin family in the capital asked them to take care of us. If the capital's Lin family was involved, they did have enough influence to command this level of respect. Mrs. Lin waved dismissively. Oh, please. If people give you gifts, just accept them. Are you afraid they'll burn your hands? She took the gift list and smiled so widely she could barely close her mouth. She could use the silk to make herself clothes and wear the jewelry whenever she wanted. The 500 square meter parcel of land was incredibly valuable too. They could turn it into a private garden estate and fill it with flowers. Mrs. Lin was already imagining what she would do with every single gift. Logan really struck gold today. Mrs. Lin was so excited. She wanted to take all the gifts home immediately and open them one by one. Logan also tried hard to suppress his smile so he wouldn't look too visibly excited. Mom, this is all because you have such amazing connections. Mrs. Lin smiled proudly. Of course, ding. The elevator doors opened again. Everyone was too busy celebrating to notice that the temperature in the hall seemed to drop instantly. Victoria stepped out. Her expression was pitch black, and her steps were steady. An icy, overwhelming aura radiated from her entire body. Beneath her dark brows, her deep eyes carried barely restrained fury, like an ancient cursed sword, ready to be drawn from its sheath. She was terrifying. Miss Shaw, you're here. Mr. Lewis immediately stood up and rushed over like an eager subordinate. He shoved David aside without hesitation, thinking David had absolutely no sense. Why wasn't he getting out of the way? He was nothing more than the person greeting guests, yet he dared stand in Miss Shaw's path. How clueless could he be? Later, in private, Mr. Lewis intended to give David a serious warning. Mr. Lewis smiled ingratiatingly. Ms. Shaw, you changed the venue without telling us first. Luckily, we all managed to find the right place. I was the first one here. I wonder whether your little brother likes the gift I prepared. The entire Lin family instantly froze. What did that mean? Mr. Lewis, David was speechless. Oh, Mr. Lin, why aren't you welcoming Miss Shaw inside? You really don't know how to handle these things. Mr. Lewis frowned. If I were you, Gover and Ball would have arranged everything perfectly for Miss Shaw. As he spoke, Mr. Lewis waved his hand impatiently. Pluvis sighed. The Lin family stepped aside in unison. While enormous waves of shock crashed through their hearts, Mrs. Lin still couldn't understand what was happening. What is going on? I curled my lips. What's going on? All the guests from my banquet on the 7th floor were brought here to your 2nd floor. My eyes narrowed slightly, turning cold. And you still have the nerve to ask? Victoria gave a cold laugh. and ran her fingers over the prayer beads around her wrist. Lifting her chin, I invited all of you here in good faith to attend my little brother's graduation banquet. Yet, you acted with this little awareness. Do you look down on me, Victoria Shaw? Mr. Lewis went completely pale. A chill swept across his back. Everyone else was stunned too. They had simply followed the people greeting guests and ended up at the wrong place. They had mistaken one banquet for another. Victoria stood motionless, then raised one hand and made a simple gesture. Trash it. A group of men in black immediately began smashing the banquet hall without hesitation. The businessmen screamed and scattered far away. But the terrifying part wasn't the tables being destroyed. It was the fact that they had offended Victoria Shaw. Crash after crash echoed as plates and dishes shattered across the floor. One moment, this had been an extravagant banquet. The next, it had become a horrifying wreck. Mr. Lewis's legs trembled. Miss Shaw, the Lin family is the one who misled us. Victoria had never been a patient person, and she had no interest in listening to excuses. I don't want to hear your nonsense. Think carefully about how you're going to take responsibility for this mistake. Mr. Lewis felt cold all over. He nearly collapsed. This was unbelievably unfair. He had rushed back from overseas just to attend this graduation banquet. Yet before he'd even managed to build a relationship with Sterling Pharmaceuticals, or Ms. Shaw, he had somehow stepped straight into a disaster and offended them instead. It was unbelievable, completely absurd, and impossible to understand. Right. This entire mess was because of the Lin family. If the Lins hadn't caused trouble, how could things have ended up like this? Mr. Lewis spun around and glared at David. Borse. David quickly stepped backward. Mr. Lewis, please calm down. But Mr. Lewis had already lost all reason. He grabbed David violently by the collar. This is all your fault, David Lin. You've completely screwed me over. I was minding my own business, and you tricked me into coming here. How shameless can you be? How dare you? Mr. Lewis's spit sprayed across David's face. David looked utterly miserable. I didn't know either. How could this have happened? There has to be some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, David hurriedly said. This is the hotel's mistake. The other guests went from confused to shocked and finally understood what had happened. One by one, they stared at the ridiculous scene, their faces darker than ever. Every one of them glared furiously at the Lin family. The graduation banquet was supposed to be on the 7th floor. I knew I remembered the 7th floor. Click-a-ding. It's all the Lin family's fault for deliberately bringing us here. The Lins caused this whole mess. What terrible luck. We somehow managed to offend Miss Shaw for absolutely no reason. The Lin family really deserves. Whatever happens to them after pulling something this shameless, they've got some nerve-causing trouble like this. Do they seriously have no idea who they are? How dare they provoke Sterling Pharmaceuticals? Mr. Hua's expression was relatively calm. His gift had been delivered directly to the 7th floor. Good thing I came in person today. Or I would have ended up making the same mistake as all of them. He looked toward Claire and said, See? The Lin family's character really is questionable. Just to save face and make their banquet look impressive, they actually stooped to something this underhanded. Small-minded people really can't rise above themselves. Claire's dad, Michael Moore, watched the chaos and felt a lingering sense of fear. He looked at Claire with a dark expression. Claire, I stopped interfering with how you handled things before, because Ryan once saved your life. So even after Logan embarrassed himself at the last banquet, I still didn't forbid you from associating with him. But today, the Lin family has caused a massive disaster. If you don't want to be thrown out of this family, cut ties with that man immediately. Mrs. Moore waved her hand sharply. I don't want to see you having anything to do with the Lin family again. Claire felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She was embarrassed and miserable too, so naturally she didn't dare argue. Her parents were already tempted to leave immediately. The Lin family stood frozen in place. All 300 banquet tables had been reduced to wreckage. They stared painfully at the destruction, heartbroken, shocked, and completely at a loss. The happier they had been moments ago, the harder it was to believe what was happening now. They had felt as though they were standing above the clouds, only to have a bucket of freezing water dumped over their heads. The chill sank straight into their bones. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. Mrs. Lin finally understood that saying today. She looked utterly miserable. Her face drained of all pride. She didn't even dare lift her head. She knew that right now. There were probably countless people who wanted to tear the Lin family apart. It was over. Everything was over. Everything was over as Mr. Lewis continued screaming insults at her husband. Mrs. Lin didn't dare say a single word. David was completely dazed, too. His face was filled with embarrassment and regret. Great. After today, their family would become a complete joke. And they had offended so many powerful people. His heart pounded with fear. The hall suddenly felt too crowded and suffocating. He struggled to breathe and clutched his chest. His vision began to blur. He desperately wanted to call an ambulance and be taken anywhere, as long as he didn't have to stay here and keep humiliating himself. Logan hid behind his mother, wishing he could dig a hole and disappear into it. Mom, how did this happen? They weren't here for us. They just went to the wrong banquet. Logan's eyes turned red. He bit his lip, unable to accept it. He had thought he'd finally become a true wealthy heir. Tears began falling from Logan's eyes, and his heart trembled. He was utterly crushed. So all of this had only been his own fantasy. Those people had simply gone to the wrong banquet. It was humiliating. Absolutely humiliating. Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number. I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Logan's eyes were red. He bit his lip, unable to accept it. He had thought he'd finally become a true wealthy heir. Tears began falling from Logan's eyes, and his heart trembled. He was utterly crushed. So all of this had only been his own fantasy. Those people had simply gone to the wrong banquet. It was humiliating. Absolutely humiliating. One of the Lin sisters hurried over and grabbed Logan's arm, pulling him protectively to her side. Sophia also comforted him softly. Logan, this was our mistake. It has nothing to do with you. Don't worry. Even if the sky falls, I'll hold it up for you. The other guests crowded around and began berating the Lin family. Mr. Hua felt disgusted by the whole thing. He folded his arms across his chest. At least he was composed enough not to completely lose control. But his opinion of the Lin family had fallen to rock bottom. Mrs. Lin, you really did something impressive today. My life had been going far too smoothly, and somehow I managed to stumble because of you. You really are something. But if you want to make an enemy of Zhenhua Pharmaceuticals, you'd better prepare yourselves. Mr. Hua smiled coldly. He was normally a fairly generous man, but no one could stay happy after stepping in something disgusting. So no one could blame him for holding a grudge against the Lin family. President Lewis shot them an irritated look, without saying anything. Another executive shouted angrily, "What a Lin family! Just wait," with everyone condemning them. David began to feel genuinely afraid. Mrs. Lin was even worse. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably, and she almost burst into tears in public. She had no idea what to do anymore. "I'm sorry, everyone," she said through tears. "This is all my fault. Please don't blame the rest of the Lin family." Mrs. Moore walked over and glanced at her. "I warned you before. People who act without loyalty eventually destroy themselves. You deserve this," she smiled smugly. Then followed Michael Moore into the elevator. Claire stopped walking and looked back at Logan. "Logan, how about I take you home?" Evelyn hadn't spoken the entire time. To her, this was nothing more than a petty farce among ants. Watching for amusement was enough. She slowly raised one hand. A faint, contemptuous smile appeared in her narrow eyes. "Who said anyone could leave? Whoever wants to leave this place needs my permission first." Claire turned and looked at Evelyn. She was stunningly beautiful. Yet something about this woman made Claire instinctively frown and become more cautious and guarded. Do animals unconsciously shifted toward me standing beside Evelyn. A wave of inexplicable negativity surged through her heart. Why did this man have to be so dazzling? He had a face identical to that of her dead fiancé. Exactly the same. Yet he acted so intimately with another woman. Claire's expression darkened. I'm sorry. Please give the Moore family some respect. I'll apologize to you on his behalf. But no one responded to Claire. Logan hid behind her, his entire body trembling with cold fear. Did this woman really not even care about the Moore family? Who exactly was she? Logan nervously grabbed Claire's sleeve, trying desperately to make himself as invisible as possible. He could already feel the overwhelming pressure and danger. Second after second passed. The banquet hall was deathly silent. Everyone stared toward them, apparently waiting to see whether Claire could actually settle the matter. Neither Mr. Hua nor President Lewis said a word, yet Claire dared to plead for mercy. She really had no idea what she was dealing with. Someone whispered that the Moore family did have considerable influence. Claire's grandfather was extremely powerful in the capital, and that was the foundation the Moore family had built over many years. They were important people even here. Maybe Evelyn really would give them some respect. That's true. Even Mr. Hua usually gives the Moore family some consideration. The silence felt like being slowly cut apart with a knife. Claire was beginning to lose her original composure. She stared steadily at Evelyn, but Evelyn's expression never changed. She remained calm and faintly sickly looking, as though nothing in this world was worthy of her attention. After a long moment, "You want to talk about respect in front of me?" Evelyn's lips curved slightly. She raised her eyes. A cold, ruthless light filled them. "Who do you think you are?" Claire froze in place. Her entire body going rigid. Everyone watching sucked in a sharp breath. Someone hurriedly whispered, "Who is she?" "Someone who can stand beside Mr. Allen." Could she be on the same level as Miss Shaw? A lot of people were afraid they didn't understand the situation, and might end up provoking the wrong person, just like Claire had. This woman looked frail, but her presence was anything but weak. Could that be the ghost-faced miracle doctor? Evelyn Shaw, the moment that name was spoken. The entire hall fell into complete silence. Evelyn Shaw? You've got to be kidding. Victoria Shaw wasn't enough. And now Evelyn Shaw is here too? They knew nothing about the 12 Shura of the Shadow Organization, but they did know Evelyn's public identity. She was the head of the Miaoshan medical sect, and one of the capital's most famous miracle doctors. Mysterious, unpredictable, and extremely temperamental. She acted entirely according to her own likes and dislikes. She rarely saved people, but was rumored to kill far more often, making her terrifyingly dangerous. That was why people called her the ghost-faced miracle doctor. And every expert under the Miaoshan medical sect was powerful enough to intimidate an entire region. You didn't have to befriend someone like her, but you absolutely could not afford to offend her. As everyone whispered among themselves, they silently cursed the Lin family all over again. Damn those Lins. A thin figure, wearing a mask and cloak, approached while holding a small bottle. Evelyn raised her arm and half embraced me. Then with one cold hand, she gently covered my eyes. Good boy. Don't look. I tilted my head toward her. Evelyn. Evelyn raised her other hand and pressed her index finger lightly against my lips. I'm only giving her a tiny, insignificant punishment. I'm already being very kind. Evelyn spoke as though it meant nothing. If you plead for her again, I might get angry. You know what happens when I lose control? She lowered her voice beside my ear, so only the two of us could hear. If I truly wanted to kill someone, not a single person here would leave alive. I'm only holding back because of you. My back tightened, and I pressed my lips together. I wasn't planning to beg for her. I just wanted to watch. I'm already grown up. Something like this doesn't scare me. Evelyn smiled faintly. Good. Claire's face had gone deathly pale, but she still forced herself to remain calm. What are you gonna do? The cloaked person completely ignored Claire, and no one dared step forward to speak for her. The bodyguards Victoria had brought pinned Claire down as she struggled. One of them kicked the back of her knee. She let out a muffled cry and dropped to one knee. Still, she stubbornly kept her back straight. But facing so many people alone felt like being trapped in a dead end straight out of hell. She gritted her teeth and stared at the person holding the medicine bottle. I'm the daughter of the Moore family, and my uncle by marriage belongs to one of the capital's most powerful families. If you lay a hand on me, you're declaring war on one of the capital's great families. Evelyn gave a mocking laugh. Logan, arging and asked, first Tor, looked conflicted and deeply distressed, but he didn't dare move a single step closer. At that moment, even though he knew Claire had gotten involved because of him, his weakness and selfishness told him very clearly that he couldn't let himself get dragged into this. Claire was still the daughter of the Moore family. Even if something happened to her, her family could handle it. But he was different. If he went against these people, his entire life and future would be ruined. Logan watched helplessly as Claire was forced to swallow the medicine, covering his mouth as tears streamed down his face. Medicine dripped from the corners of Claire's lips. When they finally released her, she collapsed onto the floor, gasping desperately for air. She looked as though her spine had been broken, utterly miserable and vulnerable. Reality finally sank in. These people truly wouldn't show mercy just because she was a Moore. Claire was terrified beyond words. What did you give me? Evelyn walked several steps closer. The Lin family members around Claire immediately backed away in fear, leaving an empty circle around her. Claire was bitterly disappointed, but right now she had no attention to spare for them. Her eyes were bloodshot as she glared furiously at Evelyn approaching her. Evelyn crouched down, "Ebol," and extended one pale, ice-cold hand, lifting Claire's chin, DS, and forcing her to meet her eyes. Evelyn leaned closer, with a cruel and dangerous smile. "You are rather pretty. No wonder you're so good at attracting attention." Claire didn't understand what she meant. A chill spread through her entire body. "What do you mean?" Evelyn's narrow eyes shifted, and she spoke softly, almost as if telling a joke. "Don't you enjoy showing off your charm? In front of other people? Don't you enjoy moving between men and being admired by all of them?" Her voice grew softer. Yet every word became clearer. "I almost feel sorry for you, because from now on, you won't be able to live as a woman anymore." Every word rang through Claire's ears like a massive bell. Impossible. Claire began trembling uncontrollably. It felt like something inside her mind had snapped. The woman in front of her looked far too terrifying to be human. She seemed more like a monster that devoured people without leaving even the bones. Claire couldn't accept it. "Oh, no, that's impossible." "Then live with the pain of your stupidity. Keep this secret buried in your heart." Evelyn released her and let Claire collapse back onto the floor. Then she took out a clean white handkerchief and slowly wiped her fingers, and cleaning even every flawless nail, until not a trace remained. Claire lay on the floor like a miserable stray dog, her entire body disheveled. Her face was twisted with pain and disbelief, as if she had fallen into hell and desperately needed someone to save her. She actually began to cry, sobbing uncontrollably. Evelyn rose to her feet. Her clothes remained spotless, making her look almost divine. A chandelier hung directly above her. Its light surrounded her, making her seem untouched by the filth around her. Even strands of her hair seemed to glow. She stood high above everyone else, with her eyes lowered, almost carrying a trace of compassion. A saint's face with a serpent's heart. Claire fell into complete despair. She finally realized that the world was far bigger than she had believed, and the Moore family could never protect her from everyone. The others had no idea what had happened. No one else knew what Evelyn had done to Claire, or what she had whispered to her. But seeing Claire completely break down made everyone feel a chill of fear for themselves. It was terrifying. Victoria stood nearby with a cigarette between her fingers. The glowing red ember burned at its tip, while faint smoke and the scent of tobacco curled around her. She crushed the cigarette out, lowering her sharp, dangerous eyes. Then she waved away the smoke before walking toward me. Her throat moved slightly. She looked impatiently at the Lin family. "Start apologizing." The Lin family all stiffened. I withdrew my gaze and stopped looking at Claire lying miserably on the floor. Seeing her any longer would only make me sick. I couldn't understand how I'd ever fallen for someone so useless. Career-wise, she had always lived under her family's protection, with no ambition of her own. She relied comfortably on her family for everything, and emotionally, she had never even been capable of loyalty. She liked someone else while still keeping me hanging. And in the end, she betrayed me and stabbed me in the back. Crash. I smiled faintly and looked at the Lin family with interest. They had been hiding silently like terrified quails. I raised a finger and pointed at Logan. "This is your graduation banquet, right? Guys, If you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner. And tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. Without the slightest hesitation, that same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, I raised a finger and pointed at Logan. This is your graduation banquet, right? Logan's lips trembled. No, I just happened to schedule mine on the same day as yours. I was wrong. I really was wrong. Please, I'm begging you, spare me this once. We'll be attending the same university from now on. Maybe we could even become friends. Logan had finally realized how terrifying the situation was, and was already babbling nonsense. I laughed mockingly. No way. I'm just someone who paid his way into school. How could I possibly deserve to be classmates with someone who earned his place honestly like you? The moment those words left my mouth, Logan's face turned deathly pale. Mrs. Lin's expression became equally terrible. They bitterly regretted what they had said earlier. Now, they had driven themselves straight into a dead end. Every passing second felt like being roasted over an open flame. No, that's not what I meant. Shut up! David swung his hand and slapped Logan across the face, sending him crashing to the floor. This is all because of you, you useless bastard. Why did you have to hold some ridiculous graduation banquet? You're completely disgraceful. Logan let out a short cry as he fell hard onto the floor. The metallic taste of blood filled his mouth. His dad had put everything into that slap. Logan pitifully covered his face. His eyes were filled with shock. As tears streamed down his face, Dad, David looked away, unwilling to spare him another glance. Even his dad had abandoned him. But this clearly wasn't all his fault. Logan wasn't stupid. He knew David wanted him to take all the blame alone. Logan sat helplessly on the floor and looked at me pleadingly, as if I were his last chance at survival. Mr. Allen, I really know I was wrong. I was wrong. You're someone important. His voice was humble to the extreme. Please, show me some mercy. Another Lin sister's heart ached terribly for him. Sophia was also desperately holding herself back. Madison looked exhausted and couldn't bear to watch. But all of them shared the same thought. Why did facing someone with this space always bring them nothing but disaster? First, there had been Ryan, who haunted them like a curse. And now this arrogant, domineering man. Their poor Logan had suffered too much. Mrs. Lin's face turned livid. Honey, the graduation banquet wasn't even Logan's idea. Shut up. You're still defending him? David roared. Hasn't he caused enough trouble already? Do you understand how much disaster this useless boy has brought our family? This is already the second time. We sacrificed our biological son just to raise an adopted son like this. No one is protecting him today. He can pay for this with his life if he has to. Even as David said it, his heart felt as though it were bleeding from a knife wound. After all, Logan was the son. He had spent 18 years raising with everything he had, but David was still rational. Now that things had reached this point, this was their only choice. He was filled with regret. If only he'd known. If only he'd treated Ryan better. In appearance, Ryan had always been more handsome than Logan. In personality, Ryan might not have been as good at pleasing people, but at least he had been honest and well-behaved, hard-working and modest. He never went around causing trouble. And inability, despite growing up in the countryside, Ryan had studied relentlessly and wasn't inferior to any city kid. He had ranked first and earned his university admission. What exactly was so special about Logan? All Logan had was 18 years of emotional attachment and a softer personality. That knew how to make people happy. But once real trouble appeared, those strengths were completely worthless. David regretted everything so deeply that if he could return to 8 months ago, he would treat me properly and give me far more love while still treating both sons equally. Mrs. Lin lowered her head timidly after being scolded by her husband. Her shoulders drooped and her heart ached terribly. She knew there was probably no easy way out of this today. Victoria looked down at Logan on the floor, as though she were looking at a disgusting insect. Her expression carried open disgust. Sweetheart, how do you want to deal with him? I don't know. You decide. I pressed my lips together, unwilling to waste any more thought on these people. Victoria gave a cold hum. If I decide, then he'll be carried out of here. And 7 days from now, his family can hold his memorial. My brow twitched. Madison could no longer stay silent and stepped forward. Miss Shaw, you seem to be a Buddhist. Wouldn't staining your hands with blood go against that? Victoria touched the prayer beads around her wrist. I kill only to achieve enlightenment. Buddha understands reason. He'll forgive me. Madison's heart sank violently. Someone like this was far too terrifying. There was no reasoning with her. If Madison said too much, he might end up being carried out alongside Logan. Another Lin sister frowned and stepped forward. I'll take his punishment. What happened today has nothing to do with my brother. I'll suffer in his place. Logan tried to stop her, but it was already too late. He frowned anxiously. Victoria's fingers brushed her prayer beads, irritation flickering in her eyes. Then, break his arms and legs. Logan stared at her in disbelief. No! If that happened, how was he supposed to attend college? How was he supposed to live? What if there were permanent complications? And he became disabled? What would happen to his entire future? No, Mom, Dad, Sister, save me. Logan cried out desperately for help. He tried to run, but almost immediately, 2 bodyguards grabbed both of his arms. Pinned in place, he looked desperately at everyone around him. The guests could barely stand to watch. But whenever they met his gaze, they silently took a step backward. Some were so afraid of being dragged into the situation that they slipped away through another emergency exit. Everyone knew how to protect themselves, especially when they were still furious at the Lin family for causing this disaster. There was no way anyone would step forward for Logan. We didn't mean for the graduation banquet to turn out like this. You can't do this to me. Logan struggled against the bodyguards and stared fearfully at Victoria. Please spare me this once. I swear I'll never do it again. I'll always remember how merciful you were. I'll change, I promise. He lowered his head, and tears fell one after another onto the floor. Only when he was completely alone and helpless did he finally understand what despair felt like. Why wouldn't anyone speak up for him? Why was the world so cold? Victoria's sharp eyes carried an icy edge. This is what happens when you bring disaster on yourself. I tugged slightly at the corner of my lips and smiled. Looks like you didn't get to enjoy yourself for very long. I had originally planned to let Logan enjoy his triumph a little longer. Too bad he was so useless. Someone brought over the red gift registry and respectfully presented it to me with both hands. Young master, this is the gift list. I casually took it, without even looking at the contents. Logan stared at the gift list, with tears still filling his eyes. I stood before him surrounded by admiration, high above everyone else. While he looked like a drenched stray dog being mocked from every direction, he had genuinely believed those gifts belonged to him. His disappointment had reached its limit, and intense jealousy surged through him. Why did Ryan get to have such incredible luck? Why couldn't it have been his? Logan gritted his teeth. I didn't actually cause you any real harm. You've already humiliated me this badly. Do you really have to use your power to bully me and drive me into a dead end? What you're doing is illegal. I held the gift registry with an indifferent expression. If you touch something that doesn't belong to you, you pay the price. And as for using power to bully people, I looked as though I'd heard a joke. If you're weaker, then endure it. I smiled without warmth. Don't tell me you've never used your own power to bully someone before. Logan's entire body froze. He stared at me in disbelief. What did that mean? Then realization struck him. You're Ryan. Logan was terrified. He had used his family's power to bully someone before. He had used the family's influence to steal my university admission spot. I narrowed my eyes slightly. Looks like the lesson last time wasn't enough. Logan trembled. No, you can't be Ryan. He was on the verge of crying. His heart was being tortured twice over. How had he been driven into a situation like this? Even though he suspected this man really was me, he didn't dare say it aloud. The moment he did, he knew the punishment would become even worse, and even more terrifying if I truly was Ryan. Then I would definitely take brutal revenge on him. Against Sterling Pharmaceuticals, Victoria, and Evelyn, Logan had absolutely no ability to protect himself. He was nothing more than a tiny ant, being toyed with in the palm of their hands. In an instant, Every trace of Logan's fighting spirit vanished. His legs went weak. If the bodyguards hadn't been holding his arms, he probably would have collapsed straight to the floor. I understand. I gave a cold laugh. Since you understand, then take the consequences. After saying that, I turned and stepped into the elevator. Evelyn and Victoria followed behind me. The two terrifying women stood on either side. I pressed the button for the 7th floor, and the elevator doors slowly closed. Just before they shut completely, I heard a scream. Then the horrifying scene on the 2nd floor disappeared behind the doors, and I couldn't see another thing as the floor numbers climbed. The 7th floor was lavishly decorated. Some of the 300 tables in the enormous banquet hall were already occupied. Floor-to-ceiling windows surrounded the entire space, letting in brilliant natural light. From here, you could overlook the gardens and lake below, with the entire landscape spread out before you. Some guests sat there trembling nervously, reading messages sent from people on the 2nd floor. The moment they saw us arrive, they hurriedly put their phones away. However terrifying and chaotic the 2nd floor was, the 7th floor was just as calm and peaceful. Victoria sneered. I hadn't even gone after the Lin family yet, and they came knocking on death's door themselves. We let them off far too easily. Evelyn spoke slowly. A trace of amusement flickered in her narrow eyes. Taking our time with them isn't bad either. I looked at my sisters, and thought to myself that the Lin family probably wouldn't know a peaceful day again, but I certainly wasn't going to pity them. By the way, there's an opening ceremony at school the day after tomorrow. The principal sent me a message. Family members can attend. Evelyn and Victoria exchanged a look. I immediately sensed the tension between them. I hurriedly added, I can bring 2 people. Only then did both of my sisters look satisfied. Several executives, including Andrew Lewis, came over to speak with us, and the banquet continued as normal. Back on the 2nd floor, David looked as though he'd aged several years. One of the Lin sisters carried the bloodied Logan on her back and hurriedly called an ambulance. Sophia and Madison stayed close beside him. Logan lay weakly against his 4th sister's shoulder. His voice was barely audible. That man is Ryan. He managed to say only that. Before the pain left him unable to speak. Logan, are you saying? Sophia frowned. The CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals is Ryan? Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and watch the continuation. You can tap it to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart, without the slightest hesitation. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Logan lay weakly against his sister's shoulder. His voice was barely audible. That man is Ryan. He managed to say only that, before the pain left him unable to speak. Logan, are you saying? Sophia frowned. The CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals is Ryan? Madison didn't really believe it. Probably not. If he really were Ryan, he never would have handed over his A university admission spot, and Ryan couldn't possibly have this kind of power or background. Sophia suddenly remembered that this man was also attending a university. I'm a professor at a university. I'll find out once school starts. If he really is Ryan, there's no way he can hide every clue. They rushed outside while talking. Mrs. Lin sat on a chair covering her face. Most of the people had already left. She wiped away her tears as she cried. Looking utterly exhausted, Michael and Mrs. Moore hurried over and found their daughter pale and completely out of it. Claire sat on the floor without saying a word. Mrs. Moore became both anxious and angry. Claire, what's wrong with you? I heard you offended those powerful people again because of the Lin family. How could you be this foolish? Don't blame her right now. Michael frowned and spoke sternly. Claire, tell us honestly, how are you feeling physically? Claire's eyes moved slightly. She stared blankly at her parents. But Evelyn's words kept echoing in her ears. Fool, you'll live with the pain forever. Keep this secret buried in your heart. Claire's face grew even paler. Her lips moved, and it felt as though a giant hand had clenched around her heart. The air inside her chest seemed to vanish all at once. Mrs. Moore was already losing patience. Say something. Claire lowered her head guiltily. My leg is hurt. Everything else is fine. It's just embarrassing. He showed them the injury on her foot. See? It's nothing serious. Even though Claire said that, her condition looked terrible. She seemed as though a dark cloud hung over her, and her voice was unusually quiet, completely different from her normal self. Her expression was miserable, and she deliberately changed the subject. Mom, I understand now. I know you were right. Michael sighed. Honey, our daughter has always cared a lot about her pride. This time she probably just can't get over the humiliation. But at least she's this calm, so she should be fine. Pride doesn't put food on the table. Mrs. Moore finally relaxed. It's okay. Don't worry, sweetheart. I was afraid you'd been seriously hurt too. But this kind of minor injury is nothing. He reached down and helped Claire stand. Let's go to the hospital. No. Claire suddenly pulled away from her mother. I'm not going to the hospital. She couldn't let anyone know that she had already been ruined. If anyone found out that she could no longer even live normally as a woman, how could she possibly face the world? Claire met her mother's worried and surprised gaze and desperately fought back the urge to cry. Her voice turned pleading. Mom, I'm exhausted. I just want to go home and bandage it myself. All right, we'll go home. Michael patted Mrs. Moore lightly and whispered, She's probably just badly frightened. Mrs. Moore nodded. Maybe getting scared like this is good for her. At least she won't keep trying to play hero. Then she warned Claire again. From now on, don't get involved with the Lin family. Ever again. They're completely finished after today. Mrs. Lin raised her head, and hearing those words only made her feel worse. After the Moore family left, only David and Mrs. Lin remained, along with Olivia standing silently in the shadows. When Mrs. Lin noticed Olivia, she complained, Where were you when all of that happened? Do you have any idea what happened to your brother? I was here the whole time. I saw everything that happened. Olivia stopped walking and looked at Mrs. Lin. Are you really surprised this happened? Mrs. Lin frowned. Olivia, what do you mean? Olivia understood in her heart that the mysterious young man was Ryan. He simply would never admit that he was Ryan again. For 8 months, the Lin family hadn't given Ryan even the slightest support. Olivia's voice turned bitter. You even took away his admission spot. Did none of you ever think this day might come, that someone might use the exact same method against you and crush you simply because they're stronger? Why do you keep mixing Ryan up with that man? Mrs. Lin trembled with anger. Stop talking nonsense. That man isn't Ryan. Ryan is already dead. Even the rescue team said there was no hope. What? Do you think he came back as a ghost? Their identities are worlds apart. It's impossible. If Ryan really had such a powerful background, why would he ever have let this family control him? If you think it's impossible, then fine, call it impossible, Olivia sneered. But everything that happened today was your own doing. Ever since Olivia learned that Ryan had saved her once before, she had started looking at everything involving him more fairly. Every single time, it had been the Lin family pressuring Ryan, while Ryan endured it again and again. And in the end, he had still risked himself to save them. What would Olivia have done if she were him? During countless quiet nights, Olivia had imagined herself in Ryan's place and asked what she would have done. She definitely would never have saved people who treated her like enemies. Olivia exhaled and walked toward the elevator. She stepped inside without looking back. At least she knew he was alive. As long as he was alive, she still had a chance to make amends. Mrs. Lin gritted her teeth. Honey, look at Olivia. She's completely lost her mind. She's being totally unreasonable. David didn't want to argue. Instead of blaming Olivia, you should pay more attention to that son of yours. Go to the hospital and check on him. I'm going back to the company. I have this enormous mess to clean up now. Neither of them wanted to stay there any longer. But the hotel manager stepped in front of them. I'm sorry, you two. Today's banquet turned out rather unpleasant, and I regret that. But as you can see, the damage is extremely serious. The damages still need to be compensated first. He rubbed his hands together, completely different from how enthusiastic he'd been earlier. We're just running a hotel. Hey, we can't afford to absorb losses this huge. As he spoke, the accountant beside him brought over the bill with a cold expression. Here's the itemized statement. Take a look. Will you be paying by card or bank transfer? Mrs. Lin's heart ached. She took the bill and looked at it. Her vision nearly went black. Honey, David's teeth hurt just looking at the number. This is way too expensive. And we weren't even the ones who smashed everything. Your security failed. Mrs. Lin immediately agreed. Exactly! Anyone can just come in and attack your guests. And you still expect us to pay? You should be refunding us and compensating us for emotional distress. The manager gave a cold laugh. This was a private grudge. Your enemies caused the damage, so our hotel isn't responsible. He had no choice but to bring up the powerful people backing the hotel. And in the end, the Lin couple had no choice but to pay a massive amount in compensation. Mrs. Lin looked like she wanted to cry as she weakly left Woohoo Hotel. Even when she stepped back into the sunlight, her skin still felt cold, without the slightest warmth. David got into the car without even looking at her, then floored the accelerator and drove away. Honey, Mrs. Lin stared in shock, but she knew David was truly furious this time. She stood there miserably for a long time, without even managing to get a ride. Upstairs, I watched from the floor-to-ceiling window for a while, and couldn't help finding it amusing. I gently swirled the champagne in my hand, and took a small sip. I'd once been just as miserable as she was now. So Mrs. Lin would have to slowly get used to it. Once she truly lost everything, she wouldn't even have the luxury she enjoyed now. Sooner or later, she'd have to learn how ordinary people lived. Victoria answered a phone call, and her brows drew together. She walked over behind me, her voice serious. Ryan, Natalie Moore transferred into the chemistry department at your university. You'll run into her the day after tomorrow. I turned around. My third sister? The 12 Shura weren't ranked by age, but by the order they joined. Number 3, Natalie Moore, was only about half a year older than me, but she was a genius with an IQ of 160. She had played with all kinds of dangerous chemicals since childhood. She already knew enough to teach at a university herself. Did she really still need to go to school? I looked confused. I didn't even know Natalie had started studying at a university. Victoria did know. She frowned slightly. She has published many papers in major academic journals, so she can enroll without taking the entrance exam. All of us have public identities, and hers happens to be that of a highly sought-after genius scholar. I couldn't help laughing. Now I was even more excited for the opening ceremony the day after tomorrow. A day later, at the hospital, Logan lay in bed, with metal braces supporting his entire body. Only his head could move. Mrs. Lin and Sophia were beside him, along with Madison and another Lin sister. Tears filled Logan's eyes. His face was pale. Mom? That man really is Ryan. He won't let me go that easily. He's definitely going to come after me again. Logan regretted everything. Ryan had suddenly become the CEO of Sterling Pharmaceuticals. What am I supposed to do? If he'd known Ryan would turn out like this, he never would have dared provoke him. His arms and legs had been badly injured yesterday, and countless pins had been inserted into his bones. It hurt so badly that every second felt worse than death. The pain kept Logan from sleeping, and whenever he finally managed to fall asleep, nightmares followed. He dreamed that Ryan carved him apart piece by piece, and no matter how desperately he begged, it didn't stop. Logan woke up crying every time, but he knew that even after everything he'd already suffered, he probably still wouldn't escape revenge that easily. Stop thinking nonsense. That man isn't Ryan. Even Mrs. Lin felt terrified whenever she remembered him now. Someone like that was genuinely frightening. We should stay as far away from him as possible from now on. She refused to believe that man and Ryan were the same person. Because Ryan had always been a pushover, anyone could bully. While this man was a powerful figure no one dared provoke. Mrs. Lin sighed again. And now there's another problem. The Lin family company has had every partnership terminated. Your dad is completely overwhelmed. Luckily, your sisters all have their own careers. Otherwise, this family really wouldn't be able to hold on. The family comforted Logan for a while, until his emotions finally settled down. Then, he suddenly remembered something important. Registration is tomorrow. Has my student record been updated online? Mrs. Lin picked up a tablet. It has. Look, you're already listed as an A university student. Logan, don't be afraid. See? Here's your enrollment information. Your file has already been transferred to A university, and I've already paid your tuition too. Mrs. Lin sighed. The tuition is actually pretty expensive. Maybe it's because you're in the best program, so it costs more. Logan's eyes were still filled with tears, making the screen hard to see. As long as I can attend college, that's enough. The best program would naturally have the best professors and facilities. So of course the tuition would be higher. Still, guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé had already canceled our wedding as a threat to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart without the slightest hesitation. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Logan's eyes were filled with tears, and he could barely see the screen clearly. As long as I can attend college, that's enough. The best program would naturally have the best professors and facilities. So of course the tuition would be higher. Logan only glanced at the information. Mrs. Lin didn't look closely either, and simply closed the web page on the tablet. Neither of them noticed that the admission code belonged to the art department of a junior college, which was part of a university's affiliated vocational college. As the best university in the provincial capital, a university had several affiliated junior college campuses. The art department could even study near the main campus. At least, the difference wasn't quite as extreme as between Peking University and a vocational training school. Unfortunately, neither mother nor son looked carefully enough, and they still believed Logan was enrolled in a prestigious undergraduate program. Mom, I have to keep studying. I have to get an A university degree. Logan knew his reputation was already ruined. He couldn't afford to lose his education too. As long as he had that prestigious bachelor's degree, he could eventually leave this rising first-tier city and move somewhere larger and more prosperous. Then he could start over, and no one there would know that he'd once had his arms and legs broken. Logan silently made up his mind. He would become known as a brilliant young scholar and build himself a respectable image. Then he would carve out a new future in the capital. Fortunes changed with time. One day, he'd come back and settle the score with all of them. He would never forget the humiliation of these past 2 days. Mrs. Lin patted the back of his hand. Tomorrow, we'll push you there in a wheelchair and take you to register at the university's best school. Go introduce yourself to your academic advisor. It'll help cheer you up. Logan nodded. Okay, I'll need to request leave too. I obviously can't participate in military training. Right. Meanwhile, Claire, who had always been the pride of the elite, was inside a hotel room, crouching on the floor with both hands gripping her head in frustration. Inside the luxurious suite, a handsome man lay on the soft bed. Jason pulled the blanket higher, covering his muscular body. He didn't say much. As someone in his line of work, he was considerate enough. Miss Moore, do you want to try anything else? No. Claire's face looked terrible. I've just been under too much stress lately. I heard your fiancé died saving you. Jason looked sympathetic. Don't worry. Once you get past the psychological trauma, things should return to normal. You can call me anytime. Jason certainly didn't mind providing his services to such a beautiful and young client, especially when she paid generously. But your fiancé only died a few days ago. I was honestly surprised you called me for this. As for that, Claire didn't feel particularly guilty about it. After all, even when her fiancé was still alive, she had been able to spend the night with his older brother. So this time, she at least had a reason. She could only use her dead fiancé as an excuse. Otherwise, how could she let a male escort? Find out that she was no longer capable of intimacy? I loved him deeply. His death left me emotionally traumatized. Claire's voice was cold. You can go now. I'll contact you if I need anything. After the man left, Claire could no longer hold herself together. She let out a broken cry. It's over. Everything is over. She couldn't understand how a single dose of medicine could take away her ability to have children. There has to be a cure. There has to be. Her eyes were bloodshot. If there truly was no cure, she would lose all desire to keep living. She hated Evelyn with every fiber of her being for reducing her to this. But what could she do? There was no way she could take revenge. Claire gritted her teeth. She felt utterly powerless and miserable. The next 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. With Victoria accompanying me, I bought plenty of clothes that suited me. School was about to start, after all, and I was genuinely looking forward to college life. Victoria even gave me an unlimited black card with no spending limit, so naturally, I didn't hold back. By the day before school started, I had everything prepared. Evelyn also prepared a car for me. Early on the morning school began, I got into it. With both of my sisters sitting in the back, my phone suddenly rang. I picked it up, and a sweet, cheerful voice came through. "Ryan, I'm already waiting for you at school." "Why isn't my little Ryan here yet?" Her voice was bright and cheerful. The corner of my mouth twitched. "Natalie, add me on WeChat first. We can video call." Then the call ended. Dago Allwave frowned, big, and crossed her arms, her presence intimidating. Natalie has antisocial tendencies buried in her bones. She's always had a dangerous streak. Be careful around her. Earlier this year, she went overseas and built some chemical laboratory. She nearly became an internationally wanted criminal. Even talking about it gave Victoria a headache. Anyway, don't let her teach you anything bad. I waved my hand while thinking to myself, every single one of you is like this, okay? How do you even have the nerve to criticize each other? I quickly nodded. All right, Victoria, I'll remember. My phone chimed. A new WeChat friend request appeared. Sunshine Girl has requested to add you as a friend. My hand trembled and I fell silent. I pretended I hadn't seen it. We were going to meet at school soon anyway. My third sister had always been something of a chatterbox. A university was incredibly lively today. The car stopped in the parking lot outside campus. I got out. Countless people stood near the main gate holding banners and signs. Upperclassmen from every department had come to welcome the freshmen. Among the crowd stood a tall young woman around 5'11". Her long legs were paired with a light-colored cropped t-shirt and a sunset-toned overshirt draped casually over it. Several guys were standing in front of her chatting and laughing. She responded to them casually. The corners of her lips lifted whenever she smiled, making her look cheerful and outgoing, but there was an unruly confidence in her eyes. The outer corners tilted slightly upward, while her long lashes lowered lazily. Whenever she looked at someone, there was an effortless hint of affection in her gaze, enough to make hearts race. Those captivating eyes were dangerously charming. She was the definition of a campus goddess. Freshman, you're definitely going to cause a sensation in our chemistry department. A senior named Daniel laughed. Look how many guys are staring at you. With your looks, you're easily campus beauty level. Really? What about you, senior? Natalie clicked her tongue. Her eyes were filled with a wild, playful smile. Daniel's heart skipped. His face reddened. Come on, I wouldn't go after someone younger like that. Daniel was one of the most handsome guys in the chemistry department. Yet even he couldn't help being attracted to Natalie. Your username really shouldn't be Sunshine Girl. Natalie raised an eyebrow, gesturing for him to continue. It should be Heart Thief. Natalie looked slightly enlightened. That actually makes sense. But I'm pretty innocent. Heart Thief doesn't really fit my personality. Nathan smiled faintly. Stop teasing us seniors with a face like yours. It's the line of people chasing you could probably stretch across campus. I refuse to believe you don't have a boyfriend. Who knows? Maybe I'm actually a heartbreaker. You got that right, senior. Natalie narrowed her eyes. I really am a heartbreaker. She ran the tip of her tongue lightly against her lower lip. So you'd better be careful around me. Nathan's face turned red too. Just standing there, this freshman was already impossible to ignore. And she was playful on top of that. If not for the occasional trace of detachment in her expression, Nathan might genuinely have fallen for her. He could tell Natalie was only playing around with them. She probably wasn't interested in a single one. Just then, 3 people walked toward the chemistry department. Nathan looked up, and his breathing stopped for a moment. 2 stunning women. The one on the left was cold and alluring, with shadows beneath the corners of her eyes. She looked dangerous. The one on the right wore simple, elegant clothing, and carried herself like a solitary bamboo stalk. Her beauty was breathtaking, mysterious, and captivating. Unbelievable. Nathan's face turned red. Was the chemistry department blessed with beautiful women today? First there was Natalie, who looked like a campus goddess. And now, 2 more stunning women had arrived. For a moment, he completely forgot how to speak. And he wasn't the only one. This had instantly become the most eye-catching scene at the school entrance. Daniel was equally stunned. Then his gaze moved past the 2 women. The young man standing between them, around 18 years old. His hair was slightly wavy, and he wore casual clothes. Standing between the 2 women, he looked tall, handsome, and striking. His face was exceptionally attractive. Wow. Are you a freshman in our chemistry department? Daniel's eyes lit up. The girls in our department are definitely going to love you. Actually, that wasn't necessary. Quite a few female upperclassmen had already noticed me. But with a goddess standing on either side of me, no one dared approach. I'm not in the chemistry department. I'm in the School of Management. Daniel froze slightly. A university's School of Management was one of its most prestigious programs. Unless you ranked near the top on the college entrance exam, there was practically no chance of getting in. Handsome and brilliant, too. He gave me a thumbs up. That's impressive. I smiled faintly. You're too kind. From the moment I appeared, Natalie had stopped talking. Her deep eyes remained fixed directly on me. Her sharply defined face carried a cool edge, while her charming eyes held a smile, both arrogant and strangely affectionate. She clicked her tongue, then held out her hand. Ryan, come here. I walked over, and Natalie immediately took my hand. Natalie, long time no see. My little Ryan has gotten so big. Natalie naturally reached up and rubbed my hair. I missed you so much. Now we'll finally get to see each other every day. A smile danced in her eyes, mixed with a trace of possessiveness. Perfect. No one would be closer to her little brother than she was. I pressed my lips together and smiled. Natalie, you're barely older than me yourself. You're talking like you're several times my age. Besides, you're in the chemistry department, and I'm in the School of Management. We won't even have classes together. As long as we're together in the mornings and evenings, that's enough. Natalie's tone carried the authority of an older sister. I bought a small apartment right outside campus. There's more than enough room for me and my little Ryan to live together. Victoria frowned. Natalie provocatively stretched out an arm and hooked it around my shoulders. Your sister will take care of you. Natalie, don't corrupt Ryan. How could I? Natalie spoke lazily. I love my little Ryan more than anyone. Besides, I'm a good person. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, Little Ryan, I'm exactly the same as before. I haven't changed at all. I glanced at her. If she really hadn't changed, that was the terrifying part. She truly lived up to the name Sunshine Girl. Of course, Natalie lifted her chin proudly. You can leave little Ryan with me and go now. Victoria and Evelyn couldn't even be bothered responding to Natalie. Just then, Daniel said, There's a freshman welcome event today. Family members are allowed to attend. They can also stay with the students and help them get familiar with the campus. Daniel glanced around. We also have school buses that can take you to the station, but I don't think you'll need them. Judging by the way you're dressed, you obviously came by car. Victoria wore her usual cold, domineering expression and looked down at Natalie. Her thin lips parted slightly, and her voice was low and icy. I'm attending. Evelyn's gaze was deep. A faint smile hid in her narrow eyes. I'm attending too, Natalie scoffed. Childish. I pressed my lips together and looked at Daniel. Senior, can this many family members attend together? Daniel laughed. Of course. But your family members are seriously impressive. Natalie, we'll leave your brother with you. Of course, Natalie crooked a finger at me. Little Ryan, you have to spend today with me. Even if we're taking turns, it's finally my turn. Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Daniel laughed. Of course, but your family members are seriously impressive. Natalie, we'll leave your brother with you. Of course, Natalie crooked a finger at me. Little Ryan, you have to spend today with me. Even if we're taking turns, it's finally my turn. She pinched my cheek. Look at you. You're so skinny. It breaks my heart. I'm definitely going to fatten up. My little Ryan, until you're nice and chubby. I choked. Chubby? You want to turn me into a piglet? That wouldn't be bad either. Natalie lowered her long lashes, hiding the glimmer in her eyes. Even if you became a little piglet, I'd still love you. She bent down slightly and used her index finger to tap the tip of my nose. I'd even build you a golden pig pen and keep you hidden away like treasure. I wrinkled my nose. I don't want to be raised like a pig. I turned my face away. Rejected. Your rejection doesn't count. Natalie narrowed her eyes. Seeing you like this really hurts me. There was a faint heaviness in Natalie's voice, and bitterness stirred in her heart. How had her precious little Ryan become this thin? The corner of her lips lifted. She really wanted to deal with that useless family personally, but there was plenty of time. She would never let me suffer again. I looked up, back when we were at the orphanage. Natalie and I were around the same age, and both of us were still children. We received slightly more food than the older kids, but it was always taken from us. Natalie was different. She had been fierce since childhood. No one dared steal from her. If she had one steamed bun, she would always give more than half of it to me. I tugged lightly at her clothes. All right, don't worry. Studying before was exhausting. College won't be as intense, so I'll naturally gain some weight. Don't think I can't tell you're malnourished. Natalie gave a soft scoff. Malnourished. Interesting. She had always been someone who believed in paying people back in kind. If anyone dared bully me even once, she would make sure they paid for it herself. Meanwhile, Mrs. Lin had become unusually aggressive for her son's sake. She tightened her grip on her designer handbag. A woman might normally be gentle, but a mother became strong for her child. She didn't care if she embarrassed herself. Everything she did was for her son's future. She was willing to do anything, with that fierce sense of maternal determination. Mrs. Lin really did manage to make everyone around her hesitate to approach. No one wanted to get dragged into trouble. The lobby outside the elevators on each floor was extremely spacious, and right now it was packed with people. Everyone was talking over one another about what had happened. Some were even secretly recording videos and taking photos. Mrs. Lin shouted angrily, "Everyone, come look. What kind of teacher is this? Someone secretly changed my son's academic status and refuses to give us an explanation. How can someone with no ethics act as a teacher? What right does someone like this have to teach students?" Sophia realized the situation was getting out of hand, but it was already too late to stop Mrs. Lin. Some things could be discussed privately behind closed doors, but once they were exposed publicly, there was no guarantee they wouldn't run into Logan's former classmates. Logan's admission had originally been stolen from Ryan and could never withstand public scrutiny. There were so many people outside, and now all of them are watching. Sophia wanted to intervene, but when she looked at Logan, she still pushed his wheelchair out with her. Logan looked nervous. "Sophia, am I going to lose my chance to study here?" Sophia had handled the enrollment matter together with Mrs. Lin, so she answered confidently, "No, don't worry." Only then did Logan relax. "That's good. I have to get a degree. Sophia, you have to help me. You know what our family is like now. I have to study hard on my own. Otherwise, my life will be ruined." Sophia's heart ached. "I'll make sure you get to study here." The situation was becoming more and more chaotic. When I saw how furious Mrs. Lin was, the corner of my mouth lifted. She really was quite a devoted mother, but I never remembered Logan caring this much about studying before. I tilted my head. A trace of contempt entered my voice. Natalie sneered. What a clown. She had thought some random person was causing trouble, but it turned out to be Ryan's biological mother and that adopted brother they'd picked up. So Logan was studying here too. Things were going to get interesting. The surrounding discussion grew louder. Sophia pushed Logan forward. "Everyone, please don't take photos or post this online. This concerns the university's reputation. Please be careful about what you say and do." Logan didn't dare speak. He knew Sophia was trying to protect him from public embarrassment, but uneasiness still filled his heart. Then he suddenly spotted Ryan standing out from the crowd, and his body trembled twice. It's him. Logan instinctively tried to grip the wheelchair armrest, but he couldn't move at all. His eyes widened, and he wanted to speak. His mouth opened, but his throat was so dry that barely any sound came out. Professor Lin is really impressive. Look how calm she is. No wonder she's my belle. Exactly. That academic advisor must have done something wrong, right? Listen to Professor Lin. Don't take pictures. Mr. Shui wasn't deaf. He had already been bullied long enough, and now Sophia was still trying to act morally superior. He gritted his teeth and stopped worrying about saving the Lin family's face. Since everyone has already seen this, then I'll explain exactly what happened. Mr. Shua glared at Mrs. Lin. Didn't you want an explanation? Fine, I'll give you one. I originally wanted to discuss this calmly with you. But with that attitude, with this many people watching, if he didn't explain himself properly, his entire career might be ruined. Then explain. My son was originally admitted as an undergraduate. Why isn't his student record in the system? Mrs. Lin gave a cold snort. I personally saw online that my son was admitted to a university. If his place isn't in the system, how is that possible? You must have tampered with it. Mrs. Lin waited for Mr. Shui to apologize. He'd better resolve the problem sincerely, or she wasn't going to let this go. After suffering such enormous humiliation here today, she refused to tolerate any more. Everyone turned toward Mr. Shui, waiting for him to speak. He was admitted, but his enrollment spot disappeared. Anyone would be furious if that happened to them. I think so too. You can't really blame the family for causing a scene. Let's hear what Mr. Shui has to say first. Besides, that woman has Professor Lin supporting her. Professor Lin wouldn't twist right and wrong, would she? Everyone nodded. Exactly. Professor Lin isn't unreasonable. Compared with Mr. Shui, Sophia looked far more trustworthy and had much more authority and reputation. Seeing public opinion turning completely against him, Mr. Shui pulled a crumpled sheet of paper from his pocket. Jen, his anger rose. I just printed this out. These are Mr. Lin's exam results. Logan scored 235 points on the college entrance exam. The ID number and photo on this page are yours, correct? Mr. Shui held it up for everyone to see. This was pulled directly from the official education system. There's absolutely no way it could be fake. If you don't believe me, I'll read out the exam registration number. You can look it up yourselves. Mrs. Lin's heart skipped a beat. How was that possible? They had clearly swapped the two sons' exam results. Ryan was supposed to be the one with 235 points. No, that's wrong, she became agitated, and felt both embarrassed and furious. You're lying. Logan's face had already turned deathly pale, body swayed, and all the color drained from his face. 235 points really was the score he had earned. Logan's vision went dark. His entire body burned, as though someone had poured boiling oil over him, tormenting him inside and out. No, this can't be happening. He saw everyone's expressions change. As they pointed at him, their mocking and sarcastic remarks ring clearly in his ears, undying laughing. He got 235 points and still had the nerve to come register at a university? I thought Mr. Shui was the one at fault. Professor Lin, too. Why is she helping these two act crazy? I heard Professor Lin call that woman Mom. Looks like they tried to use connections and got exposed. Gaha! 235 points, and he wants to attend a university, then accuses the school of cheating him. Is he dreaming in broad daylight? This is so embarrassing. If I were him, I'd want to disappear on the spot. Logan felt waves of dizziness. His admission spot was truly gone. Once his real score was exposed, it felt like being stripped naked in front of everyone. It was unbearably humiliating. Sophia's entire body stiffened too. She had been absolutely certain everything had already been settled. So why had this happened? She suddenly looked toward me. She didn't believe in ghosts. So there was only one possibility. Ryan had never died at all. Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé had already canceled our wedding as a threat to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. Without the slightest hesitation, that same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Sophia's entire body had gone stiff. She had been absolutely certain everything was already settled. So why had this happened? She suddenly looked toward me. She didn't believe in ghosts. So there was only one possibility. Ryan had never died at all. Ryan was him. That possibility sent a chill through Sophia's entire body. It was the only explanation. Otherwise, who could possibly reverse a result that had already been finalized? I met Sophia's shocked gaze and smiled faintly. After the crowd dispersed a little, I walked towards Sophia and Logan. Mrs. Lin had already chased after Mr. Shui to argue with him. Mr. Shui was completely fed up and was speaking with campus security nearby. In the middle of the enormous lobby, only the shaken Sophia remained, along with Logan sitting blankly in his wheelchair. Ryan, it's you. Why do you keep haunting us? Sophia's face turned cold and expressionless. Now you've pushed the Lin family to the edge. You've damaged my career, and you've taken away Logan's chance to study too. Logan screamed in panic. Yes, you're Ryan. You really are Ryan. You came back for revenge. You're not going to let me go. No, I bent down. My eyes were calm and cold. Yet, I was smiling. I waved my ID card in front of Logan. Idiot, why should I give you something that belongs to me? Do you deserve it? My dark eyes stared directly into Logan's. Seriously, besides pretending to be pitiful, what else can you do? The moment Logan saw the name Ryan Lin on my ID card, his expression became priceless. His breathing grew rapid, as though he'd forgotten how to breathe. It really is you. It really is you. Every fantasy he'd been clinging to shattered. His dream of attending university was completely gone. I had returned. He knew I would reclaim everything that belonged to me. My education, my family background, my sisters and brother, and even my parents. Everything he'd never imagined losing. I would eventually take back from him piece by piece. No, you can't do this. Logan's eyes widened, and his eyes reddened. I'd never seen him look this fragile before. Logan hurriedly turned to Sophia for help. He was completely devastated. How was he supposed to build a future in the capital now? What wealthy family would ever accept someone who scored barely over 200 on the entrance exam? And his own family wasn't even powerful anymore. Logan wasn't the only one who saw the name on my ID. Sophia saw it clearly too. Her breath caught, and her brows drew tightly together. She suddenly grabbed my arm and demanded, "So back at the reservoir, you weren't really risking your life to save us?" I sneered inwardly. That wasn't even the half of it. I'd even drugged the water they drank beforehand. Otherwise, how would every one of them have ended up drowning? That whole thing had been nothing more than a performance. Yet some of them had actually believed it. How stupid. No wonder Logan had manipulated these so-called geniuses so easily. Ryan, answer me. Was all of that just for revenge? I frowned slightly. A red mark instantly appeared on my arm. Victoria's expression darkened. She stretched out one long arm and grabbed Sophia by the collar. Victoria was tall, and her presence was overwhelming. Do you have a death wish? Her brows drew together sharply. Her gaze turned dark, with a destructive fury that seemed capable of crushing everything. Sophia stumbled as Victoria yanked her forward. Looking completely disheveled, Victoria's eyes were filled with ruthless coldness, without giving her any chance to react. She slammed Sophia hard against the elevator doors. Bang! Sophia's back crashed heavily into the metal doors. All of her elegance and composure vanished instantly. Her face twisted in pain. She clutched her chest and started to crouch down. But Victoria gave her no time to recover. She grabbed Sophia directly by the throat. The tendons stood out on the back of her hand. Sophia let out a painful, muffled sound as she struggled to breathe. You could almost hear the faint grinding of bone. She frantically clawed at the iron-like hand around her throat, but it didn't move at all. Logan burst into tears. Sophia! The surrounding students were terrified by the scene. I hurried forward. Victoria, we're at school, I reminded her. There were students and teachers everywhere, along with surveillance cameras in every direction. If she broke the law here, the situation would definitely become a huge scandal. Victoria pressed her lips together tightly, then released Sophia and grabbed my wrist instead. Sophia collapsed onto the floor, like a broken rag doll. I felt a little nervous, and told Victoria, "You need to control yourself a little better." Victoria responded quietly, although she was impulsive. She listened closely to me, her little brother. Ryan, I got carried away. Next time I'll find somewhere without cameras. I wrinkled my nose. At least that's some improvement. Victoria carefully touched the red mark on my arm. Rage burned in her chest. She wanted nothing more than to reduce Sophia to ashes. How dare Sophia hurt her little brother right in front of her? Did she really think Victoria Shaw was easy to provoke? Victoria couldn't hold herself back, and suddenly kicked Sophia hard in the chest, knocking her unconscious on the spot. I grabbed Victoria. We still have to register for school. Stop being angry. Evelyn's gaze slowly settled on the mark on my arm. A faint, cold smile curved her lips. She took a small bottle from her pocket. Ryan, it's okay. Let me rub some medicine on it. I obediently stood still. Evelyn was much taller than me, so she had to bend down to apply the medicine. I only felt a cool sensation spread across my arm. Honestly, such a tiny injury was nothing, but Evelyn looked so upset about it, so I just let her do it. Evelyn placed her pale, slender hand against my arm and gently rubbed it. Her hand was cool and surprisingly comfortable. After rubbing it for a while, the red mark really did disappear. Logan was still crying nearby. His sister had already fainted, and he thought we were all cold and heartless for not caring whether she lived or died. Sophia, Mom, stop arguing with people. Come check on Sophia. Logan felt completely helpless. Mrs. Lin hurried over and saw what had happened. She let out a cry of shock and nearly fainted herself. She rushed over and shook Sophia, then quickly called an ambulance. The four of us didn't stay and went straight to complete my enrollment. Mr. Shui was tidying up his desk. His forehead was covered in sweat as he wiped it with a tissue. The other teachers looked at him sympathetically. Mr. Shui, you've had a rough day. Mr. Shui sighed. It's not hard work. I'm just unlucky. Knock, knock. I tapped on the door. Sir, can I still complete my enrollment? The moment Mr. Shui saw me, his face brightened. It's you! Ryan, come in, come in. You're one of the students in my class. Aren't you the top scorer? Yes, number 1. You ranked in the top 3 in the entire provincial capital. And if we only count raw exam scores, you were the undisputed number 1. What surprised everyone was that I'd chosen to stay and study at a university instead of going to the capital. That really was unexpected. You look even more handsome in person than in your photo. A handsome top student. Mr. Shui was only 27. He had become an academic advisor after finishing graduate school, so there wasn't much of a generation gap between us. He quickly helped me finish all the registration procedures. Then he smiled. Welcome. Are you interested in running for class president? I smiled and shook my head. I'm pretty busy. Mr. Shui wasn't offended. He assumed I was simply busy with my studies. Then I'll head out, sir. I'll walk you out. Mr. Shui enthusiastically followed us and personally escorted us to the elevator. He even rode downstairs with us and walked us all the way to the entrance of the administration building. After we left, he sighed. That student is polite, smart, and handsome too. When he went back upstairs and saw Logan and the others still waiting for the ambulance, his expression immediately turned cold. He didn't give them a pleasant look. Mrs. Lin gritted her teeth and said, Someone like him deserves to be a teacher. Look how fake and flattering he acts around rich people. He even personally walked them out. What a shameless suck-up. Mr. Shui stopped walking and replied without holding back. That young man ranked first in the entire city. Oh, right. Didn't you people just claim you were number 1 too? Then take a good look. This is the real number 1. No, Mr. Shui sneered. Next time you pretend, don't do it in front of the real person. I'm embarrassed for you. Mrs. Lin's entire body stiffened. Yes. Wasn't that man supposed to be an international student who paid his way in? The number 1 scorer was actually Ryan? Could he really be Ryan? Mr. Shui said coldly. You even tried to steal his admission spot. Aren't you embarrassed? Mrs. Lin stopped speaking. Her eyes were filled with shock and anger. This had to be a joke. If that man really was Ryan, then the Lin family was in enormous trouble. The ambulance arrived. Mrs. Lin still stood there in a daze. A nurse reminded her, family members, please come with us to the hospital. Mrs. Lin absent-mindedly started to follow. Logan spoke quietly. Mom, what about me? Mrs. Lin looked back at Logan, as though her soul had suddenly returned to her body. Her eyes flickered, and she forced out a smile uglier than crying. Logan, don't be afraid. Mom's here. Torn between them, she asked the doctor, Doctor, which hospital are you taking her to? I'll have my other son sent over there right away. She also left her phone number. After the doctors took Sophia away, the huge lobby became empty. Mrs. Lin looked completely drained and slowly crouched down. She murmured, Ryan isn't dead. He's completely different now. He's become someone far beyond our reach. Logan grew anxious. Mom, it's okay. If we confirm that man really is Ryan, then that's actually a good thing. You're connected by blood. What grudge between a mother and son can last forever? Don't you remember? Ryan's birthday is coming soon. We can hold a huge birthday banquet for him and personally celebrate it with him. He'll definitely be moved. Logan had already changed his strategy. He knew I wouldn't let him go. After all, he'd been far too arrogant in front of me before, and had undoubtedly offended me beyond repair. But the Lin family was different. We shared the same blood. As long as they could move me emotionally, I might return to the Lin family. Then even if Logan had to cling to me like a parasite, getting a few benefits from me would already be enough. After all, I now controlled the enormous Sterling Pharmaceuticals. Calculation flashed through Logan's eyes. Mom, I remember there's a freshman welcome ceremony tonight, and there's a flower presentation segment. Hurry and order a bouquet online. Then give it to Ryan in person. Just soften your attitude a little, and he'll definitely forgive you. Mrs. Lin looked up at Logan. Logan, do you really think so? Why do I feel like he won't even acknowledge me anymore? And if he really is Ryan, how could he let that woman beat you this badly? And humiliate our family again and again? He's completely ungrateful. Logan spoke softly. Mom, Dad is carrying the entire Lin family company by himself right now. I can't bear watching him struggle like this. Let's just do everything we can, okay? If Ryan changes his mind, I'd even kneel down and apologize to him. As Logan spoke, he forced out a few tears, looking like someone willing to endure anything for the family. Guys, if you want to see what happens next, check the lower left corner and tap to keep watching. My 5 sisters froze all my cards. My wealthy fiancé threatened to cancel our wedding, to force me to give my college spot to that scheming fake heir. I calmly dialed the number I knew by heart. That same day, the underground world of a city erupted. Countless people spread the same message. Their little prince had returned. Picking up from the last episode, Logan spoke quietly. Mom, Dad is carrying the entire Lin family company by himself right now. I can't bear watching him struggle like this. Let's just do everything we can, okay? If Ryan changes his mind, I'd even kneel down and apologize to him. As Logan spoke, he forced out a few tears, looking like someone willing to endure anything for the family. Mrs. Lin's heart ached terribly. She still thought her eldest son was the sensible one. He had suffered so much, yet still cared about the family, unlike me, who had somehow become a powerful CEO, and immediately grown so arrogant I no longer knew my place. Sooner or later, society would teach me a lesson. Logan, don't worry. Mom won't play favorites. I'm only going to pretend to coax Ryan. My sisters and I went to a restaurant on the street behind the university. The 4 of us walking together attracted an incredible number of stares. We practically became a beautiful sight of our own. I scanned the menu and pointed at several dishes. Anything you don't eat? Natalie rested her chin on her hand and smiled at me. No, whatever my little skinny boy orders, I'll eat. I glanced at her. Then how about stir-fried green peppers with red peppers? Natalie's smile immediately froze. I don't like peppers. I tilted my head. Oh, really? All right. That's my fault. Natalie leaned closer. Let me look at the menu. Just then, my phone rang. I answered it. One of my subordinates told me about some rumors circulating online. I listened with growing interest. My fingers unconsciously tapped twice against the menu. Fine. If nothing else, I can certainly afford to sponsor a trending topic. After saying that, I hung up. Victoria looked at me. What happened? I smiled. Sophia has gone viral. A respected professor and one of a university's recruitment figureheads. Her carefully built image is basically ruined now. I poured myself a glass of water and took a sip. I'll generously sponsor a trending topic for her. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Her eyes carried a cold amusement. Then let's make sure her reputation is completely destroyed. She slowly turned the cup in her hand, then quietly picked up her phone and sent a message. My other 2 sisters also exchanged knowing looks and quietly took action. I happily went back to ordering food, without noticing what they were doing. Meanwhile, the university was desperately trying to suppress the trending topic and frantically deleting posts on Weibo, but it was like they'd kicked open a hornet's nest. Every time they deleted 20 posts, another 1,000 appeared, and the rate of growth was terrifying. According to trending topic rules, the real identity of a private individual couldn't be revealed. So, the words, Professor Lin, shot onto the trending list and stayed near the very top. Countless curious users clicked in and immediately started criticizing her. She's just a professor who gets by on her looks. What an amazing professor. I guess ordinary people don't even need to work hard anymore. This is hilarious. A university owes everyone an explanation. Why are they still keeping someone like this around? Maybe a university wants to protect their precious professor. After all, so embarrassing that my university is trending for something like this. Sophia had just arrived back at a university when she received a call from the department head. Director, give me some time. I can resolve this. You can't resolve it anymore. Sophia, you know how highly I've always valued you. Better than anyone. There was no anger in the director's voice. Only deep disappointment. You earned your doctorate from a prestigious university and stayed on as faculty after graduating. You're young and have a bright future. I've always focused on developing your career, but this time, you've disappointed me too much. Teaching isn't about looks or fame. It's about character. This time, you crossed a line you never should have crossed. At first, I thought we could suppress the matter. At worst, you'd be suspended for a month and then return. But now it's trending. And the university's reputation is involved. We have no choice but to dismiss you. Sophia's entire body stiffened. She stared at a university's inspirational stone monument, standing completely alone in the enormous plaza. Director, this is a misunderstanding. There's no concrete evidence proving I actually did anything. The director didn't want to argue anymore. Your reputation is already ruined. Who would still want you teaching their students? Don't panic too much. After some time, you can apply to a smaller university in a lower-tier city. With your ability, you should still be able to find a position. Sophia couldn't hear anything after that. Her expression went completely blank. Meanwhile, I was backstage preparing for the freshman orientation group photo. The faculty had asked me to give the freshman speech for the School of Management. Fortunately, I'd performed on stage before, so giving a speech wasn't difficult for me. I stood backstage in the auditorium, quietly rehearsing my speech under my breath, and stretched my arms and legs to ease my nerves. Suddenly, someone rushed inside. The person was tall and wore a mask. Before I could react, I was dragged into the storage room behind the stage. I stumbled a few steps, then steadied myself. Who are you? Sophia pulled off her mask. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked completely desperate. She planted both hands beside me and lowered her head. A few strands of hair fell across her forehead. You did this, didn't you? I looked at her calmly. This once respected professor's sister of mine had always been admired everywhere she went, practically treated like an idol. Seeing her this miserable now was actually rather interesting. Sophia saw my faint smile and gritted her teeth. I knew it. He must have been pushing things behind the scenes. Stop it now. Don't let public opinion keep spreading. She took several deep breaths and paced back and forth a few times. The normally brilliant and elegant professor looked completely panicked now. She stopped walking and looked at me, swallowing hard. I know everything now. We wronged you. Ryan, I've thought carefully about it. When you were weak, we took away the results of your hard work and even tried to steal your education. That was my fault. We owe you an apology. Tell me how you want me to make it up to you. I'll do anything, as long as you stop what you're doing online. I pressed my lips together. My gaze remained clear and calm, even with my sister standing before me in complete desperation. I wasn't afraid in the slightest. After all, I'd already died once. Why would I be afraid of Sophia now? Make it up to me? What could you possibly use to make it up to me? When you destroyed my life and forced me into a dead end, why didn't you think about being kinder then? I raised my hand and waved her aside. Move. If my sisters realize I've disappeared, you'll die very miserably. Sophia's breathing stopped for a moment. She stared into my eyes, unable to understand why I hated her so much. After all, the attempt to switch the academic records hadn't even succeeded, and everyone in the Lin family was still my blood relative. The veins on the back of Sophia's hand bulged. Can we really never go back? Not even if we start over? Why do you hate us this much? From the moment you mistook a piece of rotten wood for a pearl, there was no going back. There was no going back. I narrowed my eyes slightly. My gaze was filled with cold indifference. You want to start over? Dream on. I walked out of the storage room and heard Sophia call after me, they'll destroy you. We're the ones who are truly your family. I curled my lips mockingly. The family that got me killed? What cheap family love. Sophia, everything happening to you now is exactly what you deserve. After saying that, I walked away without hesitation. without the slightest attachment. So what if her reputation was ruined? Back then, I'd been at the height of my fame and was still dragged down. I was merely giving her back exactly what she'd once done to me. I confidently stepped onto the stage, without noticing that at the back of the auditorium, a woman was carrying an enormous bouquet and looking around everywhere. Mrs. Lin was getting anxious. Why haven't I seen Ryan yet? There were far too many people in the auditorium, so she had no choice but to carry that huge, heavy bouquet around while searching. Her frustration kept rising. As she wandered around, she even began questioning whether doing this had any meaning. Fortunately, she wasn't the only parent carrying flowers, so she didn't stand out too much, just as she was wandering around like a headless fly. I began speaking. Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Lin from Class 1 of the School of Management. My clear voice rang through the auditorium. Mrs. Lin immediately stopped walking and heard excited discussions erupting around her. Wow, that guy is so handsome. He's from the School of Management too, guys. My heart just skipped a beat. Holy crap, he's ridiculously handsome. You people only care about looks. Unlike me, I appreciate his talent. Even as a guy, I have to admit he's seriously handsome. He has to be the new campus heartthrob. Countless male and female students stared at me on stage. I stood beneath the spotlight, tall and straight, with calm, confident posture, without the slightest trace of nervousness. While everyone was amazed by my appearance, they couldn't help marveling at how different people could be. Mrs. Lin looked up at me on stage and listened to all the praise, with nothing but disdain in her heart. If that admission spot belonged to Logan, then he would have been a handsome top student too. It was all because Ryan was selfish. He could have simply studied another year. But instead, he insisted on destroying Logan's future. They were brothers. Couldn't he have just helped his older brother? Wouldn't it have been better for the brothers to stay united? Thinking this, she headed toward the backstage area. Someone stopped her. Who are you? I'm Ryan's mother. I'm here to give him flowers. Mrs. Lin smiled as she spoke. The staff member saw how expensively she was dressed and thought the claim looked believable. All right, wait until he finishes his speech, then you can go up. Thank you. Mrs. Lin immediately headed toward the stage. The staff member muttered, Ryan isn't just outstanding himself. His family really values him too. But why does that woman look kind of familiar? He didn't connect her with the posts on the university forum, so he didn't think anything was wrong. I finished my speech, and thunderous applause erupted from below. A guy shouted jokingly, Ryan, do you have a girlfriend? I swept my gaze across the audience, and noticed several of my sisters sitting below. Their expressions didn't look particularly pleased. I smiled. Sorry, I'm not planning to date. The moment I said that, quite a few people looked disappointed. Someone that handsome and smart doesn't even want to date? Well, maybe he thinks relationships are a waste of time. Then, a woman walked onto the stage. Ryan, congratulations on becoming a university student. Mom is truly happy for you. A pair presenting flowers wasn't unusual. Parents these days were fairly modern. Another round of applause sounded from the audience. But unlike the other freshmen who had happily accepted flowers, there wasn't the slightest trace of joy on my face below the stage. And Natalie stood up. This woman really has some nerve. I haven't even gone looking for trouble with her yet. And she actually dares show up in front of us. She clenched her fist, and her knuckles cracked loudly. Some people refuse to walk the road to heaven and insist on barging through the gates of hell. Victoria gave a cold snort. I wonder how many lives she thinks she has to spare.